Confirmation of the minutes. So, Mr. Chairman. All in favor? Okay, recommendation that the county receive a new bylaw permitting farmers of the county to allow them to drive quads on the side by sides on county roads and stuff like that.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Just a point of clarification. So would you be directing administration to draft something to bring forward to a future council meeting for our deliberation? Is that what you're intending, Councilor Hartman?
Well, yeah, I would like them to come in the right words. I would love it to be brought forward, but I am looking for if we're in favor of this goal, but it might not be worded quite right. That's what I'm worried about. You know, I was hoping Larry might.
Just for clarification, we'll get Larry in a minute, but the notice of motion is put on the table to see if there's direction from council to direct staff to go back and do that, if there's enough want or need.
Yes.
And we'll let Larry speak because he's done a little research on this. Larry.
A little bit, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, with respect to Councillor Horvath's notice of motion, he's moved that Lethbridge County creates a new bylaw, and if I, maybe heard Councillor Campbell's question, that could be worded differently. No commitment at this point other than for staff to draft the bylaw for council's consideration, and whether or not that bylaw would eventually be adopted would remain to be seen. But I think if maybe we just amended the wording a little bit there to something like that, Lethbridge County draft a new bylaw permitting, and I would say farmers is probably too limited. It just has to be the public. We can't discriminate or give a certain favor to a particular group, right? So just make it sort of more broad in nature, and then staff could certainly look into drafting such a bylaw, bring it back to council for consideration of first reading and so on, and just take it from there as to whether or not council chooses to move forward.
I will amend the motion so that we wanted that we don't want them fooling around on their own the other guys. We wanted, like, if they're doing business and they have to go through pipes and stuff like that. We don't want people going on the road racing quads and stuff. That's we don't want to see that out there. That was not my idea. We wanted to sort of.
Yeah, thanks again, Mr. Chairman. As well, as Ms. Mitchell mentioned, we did do a little bit of looking into this, and there is authorization under provincial law to create such a bylaw. We have a copy of one, in fact, from County of Wetaskiwin. They allow it, and it lays it all out, and it certainly can be framed up, legally. It's not problematic. It's again just a decision as to whether or not council is in favor of allowing this. And if there are further questions at this time, which there may or may not be, but down the line, I think if we brought the bylaw forward, I would ask that our two CPOs be present as well, because they're the ones who probably have the best handle on this from a legal perspective and the kind of pros and cons and ins and outs of allowing this or not. So, thank you.
So I will amend my motion that we send it back to administration to write up a legal way of being able to leave quads and things for on the road. And to come back to council.
And just for clarification, this is a notice of motion and council's just having a discussion whether they want to go forward with it and whether they want to direct staff to spend their time drafting up a bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this is kind of the early stages of investigation, but has staff found that there's many municipalities besides County Wetaskiwin out there with this kind of a bylaw?
If I may, through the chair to Councillor Campbell's question, honestly, I haven't looked beyond that. I wonder if we could direct that question to our two CPOs again. I suspect they have further experience with this and might know of numerous other municipalities who do beyond just the county of Wetaskiwin.
Yes, there's a number of, it seems like the further north you go, like the Wetaskiwin, like I think Leduc has one. Red Deer County has one.
Come talk about the mic.
I didn't want to. Yeah, so there's a number of municipalities that already have one. And Leduc County, Red Deer County, Wetaskiwin, those are just one of the very first quick ones that I found that I searched online. But if you wanted, we could send out an email to our municipalities and just inquire as to why they have. And if I can also say that I run into a number of farmers out there that do use them during the summer months for checking irrigation pipes. And right now it's an illegal operation. So I'd say this is a good opportunity for the county to look into. Do we want to make this a legal operation? So that we're not out there chasing farmers off the road and then there's always a conflict. Because they want to be out there, let's see if we can be.
Anybody else want to speak on this matter?
It is gonna be brought back, I guess, for more information, so I would leave it at that then. So, leave it till that time.
I think we need to vote. We need to vote on whether or not we want those bylaws.
Vote as an amendment.
Yeah, would be an amendment.
Can you, where's the mic? Thank you.
Yeah.
It's on? That's better.
If that's speaking to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the council has to, members have to decide whether or not we feel that this is, should go forward.
I'll move that up, going forward.
I think we're-
Oh, yeah, I should have known that. I just can't see that far.
I heard him.
Probably that we amended it, so.
Yeah. What's the amended version?
That they go and write up. Yes.
Because I can't get it up on the screen, or something.
Okay.
George is looking into it. The county council direct administration to bring a report back to council with information regarding the legalities of permitting farmers in Lethbridge County to be allowed to drive quads or side-by-sides on county roads for farm use as long as they are insured, licensed, and registered.
And the word farmers needs to be changed to public. Yes.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Carried.
page, or I-1, pages 78 to 82, policy 145, land first reserve.
Are we coming? Okay.
She wasn't expecting to be up quite so quickly.
Yeah. I'll grab her quick.
Sort of hoping for G so Scott could get to his.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Page 77.
Morning, councilors. Scott? Just gonna navigate here to where we're talking about. We're just up the Sundial Road here at the Turn Colony. This is bylaw 19-010, Hutterite Brethren Church of Turn Road closure, sale, and consolidation. And I just direct you to the monitors here where you can see exactly where they want to close the road. And you can see that this right away goes right through the yard, right from the Sundial Road back to Range Road 19.5 here is what they're interested in. This is a total of 4.82 acres. Administration has requested county council approve this road closure, sale, and consolidation of this unused county road right away as per bylaw 19-010 at a cost of $10,604 for 4.82 acres. Administration recommended motion at this time is that council read bylaw 19-010 for the first time. Policy and council direction is for policy 109A, road allowance closure and sale. And the background of this request is that the Hutterite Brethren Church of Turn would like to close, purchase, and consolidate portions of the road right away to Northeast 19-19-4. Municipal Services foresees no future use of this undeveloped right away. The county has agreed to consolidate this road right away into their parcel, and the way it will look after it is drawn is that this right away will be consolidated into southeast of 30, and it will constitute one large parcel. So this south line here will disappear, and this right away will be consolidated here. The Hutterian Brethren Church of Turn requested this closure because they wish to mine gravel from beneath this road right of way. The county required a letter from Lethbridge County stating that we have started the closure process before Alberta Environment would issue them an expanded gravel pit license for the new area. Some alternatives and analysis is that Lethbridge County not proceed with the closure and offer a license in lieu of. One alternative. The financial implications are that the owner of this property will pay all survey and registration costs. The cost to purchase and consolidate this road as provided by Lethbridge County Assessor will be $10,604 for exactly 4.82 acres. And the reasons for this recommendation is this will allow the colony to add this portion of right-of-way to their parcel to increase its value. Municipal Services are following council's direction to sell unused road right-of-ways. Is there any questions?
What would be the value of the gravel underneath?
It's a very good question. We don't know the value of the gravel, but we also don't have any right to it. And it comes right out of the MGA this morning. Division 2 under roads, subsection 18, control of roads, subsection 3. And I quote, nothing in this section gives the municipality the direction, control, or management of mines and minerals. So we take that to believe that we have no direction, control, and management of the mines and minerals.
Yeah, and we did get that confirmed last year through questions that we asked legal counsel, that we do not have subsurface rights under those roads. That is under the jurisdiction of Alberta Transportation. So we can sell it as property, until the land gets transferred and consolidated to another parcel, then that's when the subsurface rights become available.
So I'm not quite sure then, after they get it, they can transfer, but I didn't think gravel was considered to be a mineral resource.
That's the interpretation that we got through the investigation we did in 2018.
You mentioned another alternative, which was to lease. How would that work, Scott?
Well, we offer a license now, and forgive me, I would have to read further into the actual policy to see the details, but I don't believe that we have any limitations on resource extraction under those licenses.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think there may be an issue with allowing them to mine that under a lease, because there would be no subsurface rights granted. So they could use it as an access only, and they would not be able to continue their mining operation.
I would confirm that, because as it stands, we only manage right-of-ways, we do not own them. So we manage them on behalf of the public. So I can see the reasoning in that.
So if I understand you correctly, then technically what you're saying is the Crown owns the minerals or the gravel that's there now.
Yeah.
But if you sell it to the colony, they become the owner of it?
Once it's consolidated, that right-of-way disappears. So it becomes whatever use is available on that property.
What kind of, what kind of hoops do they have to go through if we close and sale this and then they want to get the gravel? Do they have to go through Environment Ministry and have to go through those proposals as well?
Yes, they do. They have to maintain their gravel license. We have another similar situation in the north, but they do not want to mine through. So we do have a letter authorizing them to. All they did was strip the topsoil, and they use it as access. They're not actually mining. There's a small piece of that right-of-way where you can see their gravel operation is extended into our right-of-way. And all they did was strip the topsoil. We had to give them a letter because they were having issues re-registering their gravel pit license with Alberta Environment because they had encroached onto the right-of-way. But they do not want to mine the right-of-way, so Alberta Environment was happy with a letter saying they're okay to proceed with their operation there as an encroachment onto our right-of-way.
One other question, I'm just curious why Environment would even allow a gravel pit, like to be built there or allowed there when there was a right-of-way through the middle. I'm just surprised at that.
Well, it's just that the operation expanded over the years, and as their stripping continued, they used that as access. And you can see it's right on the edge, so there's kind of a road that goes around the periphery of their gravel operation, or like an internal road in their pit. So it's just, they were stockpiling there and using that to turn around, and they had to get rid of the topsoil, otherwise it would have been an issue for their trucks and their equipment. But because of that encroachment, Alberta Environment was concerned, and they wanted to ensure that the county was okay with that operation encroaching onto that right-of-way. But they do not have permission to mine anything underneath. Topsoil disturbance is something that's allowed. Other than that, they're not allowed to mine that.
Go ahead.
Wouldn't this kind of fall under the same rules and regulations as all the other gravel pits that we have in the county. Because, I mean, this is starting a new one, so apparently it's allowed because the other ones are all going.
Okay, so the example that I had was, say, at Rackus, we own the property. So it's in the county's name, the property is under ours. If we decided that we wanted to extend our operation into an adjoining right-of-way, we would have to close the right-of-way and consolidate that right-of-way with our parcel before we could continue on extracting gravel to a point where it would encroach on that right-of-way. That's the interpretation that I got, if it was us. And Alberta Transportation would have to approve that prior to us getting a permit to expand that gravel operation on that property.
Cam?
So do they own what parcel is west of that?
Are you referring to the Murray property or the Turin property?
This one right here.
This one. Yes, they do own all four quarters here.
They got all
for
four.
these little parcels.
So I guess the part I'm not very clear on is this. The minute you transfer the title of land to them, then the gravel becomes theirs. Because you don't pay any royalties to the government for the gravel. So that's the part I'm very unclear about.
Yeah, it's the road closure that we're doing here, and then once the parcel is registered, their rights to that road allowance disappear. It's the fact that it's a road allowance that does not give us the rights under that. I think probably part of it is that it would be extremely difficult to have a gravel operation exist within a road allowance. So that's why they wanted to consolidate to an adjoining parcel. Because you would not be able to mine the gravel under a road that's 30 meters wide. Your buffer it would be impossible.
Yeah, I can understand that part, but I guess the part I'm getting at is, once the ground title becomes somebody else's, then you are perfectly entitled to own what's underneath it, with the exception of oil and gas.
That's my interpretation as well.
Claus?
So then, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then I think the only thing that we have to deal with right now is the right of way to the road. Are we gonna sell it to them or not? And what happens after that, that's not none of our business, basically.
So this is first reading, so if we give it standing, when we bring back second and third reading, we can have a legal opinion drafted if you guys wish, or we can do some more investigation as to why the Municipal Government Act is written the way it is. It might be difficult. We did do this exercise last year, leading up to some of this stuff, because we knew Alberta Environment was clamping down on gravel operations and license renewals, and we knew there of these two situations that were out there. So for second and third reading, we can have some more information on that if you wish.
Well, to me, I don't think that's necessary. I think the point was just that we technically don't own the resource because we don't own the property. So, but I guess the next, do we get the money for the property?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what's so confusing about it, I guess. If we don't own it, how do we get the money? Yeah, to me anyway. Yeah.
I don't think we need to go as far as getting a legal opinion, certainly if that's a need, but I think there just needs to be a bit more clarification when it comes back, if it passes today, on what's happening with that road. Are they gonna mine the gravel out? Do they have the right to mine it? What are the next steps? I would just like to have some clarity around that.
So who's gonna make the motion? Boss?
just one comment, that shouldn't we treat this exactly the same as the other road closures that we had? Because I mean, in principle, it's the same. Is that correct?
Yeah, to me, it was just a question of who actually, do we own the resource below the road if we get the money for the property? So that was my only question.
Okay, and then with that, I'll move the first reading of the bylaw 19-010.
Any further discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, so we have a 10:30 public hearing for bylaw 18-032, C&J Woodward, amendment the land use bylaw from rural agriculture to food country residential plan 89-10-736, block 2, lot 5, and plan 9511249, block 2, lot 7 and 8, southwest 10, 1022W4. We need a motion to open the public hearing. Morris, all in favor? Anyone opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Somebody close my map. It just takes some time to load up, but that's okay. We can always refer to in the agenda package. We have it included on page
4 to 37.
4 to 37. Thank you. I was just looking for the specific page number for the map. Page 24 has the location on it also. Thank you. It's faster than usual. Excellent. It just gives you some context of where the location is for this proposed property and what's the adjacent land use is. There we go. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So this public hearing is for bylaw 18-032 for C&J Woodward, and it's to amend the land use bylaw from rural agriculture to country residential. And it contains 3 parcels, being Plan 8910736, Block 2, Lot 5, and Plan 9511249, Block 2, Lot 7 and 8, which are located in the southwest 10-10-22 West Shore, which is just south of the Park Lake Provincial Park. Park Lake Road, otherwise known as Range Road 22-3, and so it's these 3 acreages here that are included in the proposed rezoning. And you can see it's surrounded by farmland and agricultural operations. The municipal development plan requires that any request for an application that does not meet the standards of the bylaw, in terms of this to be a subdivision and development, that the parcel be redesignated so that it can conform to the use that's being proposed. Section 6.2 of the municipal development plan requires that 3 or 4 parcels that are proposed to be subdivided or have been subdivided and further subdivision is being requested, that a conceptual design scheme be submitted to support their redesignation. And so those are the policies that are backing this particular application. The application was made to be able to subdivide the northernmost parcel into 2, it's currently a 5-acre parcel, it's to subdivide it into 2 equal parcels, about 2.5 acres each. The applicant, as per the municipal development plan, has prepared a conceptual design scheme to support the redesignation. County administration reviewed the application and the proposed conceptual design scheme, and it does comply with the policies as outlined in the municipal development plan. The parcel proposed for subdivision is less than 20 acres and can only be subdivided once, as no agricultural land will be impacted as a result of this particular subdivision. The proposed parcel would have access from the existing county road, so Range Road 22-3, and there is access to all the required infrastructure, so the shallow utilities are accessible from the right-of-way. In addition, the addition of one additional lot in this area does not appear to be in conflict with the adjacent land uses. Comments regarding the application was received from Alberta Transportation, who had no objections to the proposal as it is well off any highway. No other comments were received from the external circulation. The application was advertised in the March 5th in 12 editions of the Sunny South News and also sent to the adjacent landowners. As a result of the notice, I did receive one call from the adjacent landowner, the Juno Dairy Farms. He just had some questions for clarification on what was being proposed. He was somewhat concerned about impact to his farming operation, but he didn't really express any written objections nor or anything like that. So the recommendation that I would propose to you today is that this bylaw receive second and third reading, and that it, for the reason for that is that it complies with the policy that's under the municipal development plan. And are there any questions of council on this application?
Is this where the paintball was?
No, the paintball is north of Park Lake. Scroll up and show you.
This is east of Park Lake. Oh, this is east?
Yeah, this is east of Park Lake is here, and the, that paintball facility is up on the north end.
I got you.
So there is a number of acreages in that area also. Any other questions of council?
No question, other question? So if there's anyone wishing in attendance to ask questions or make presentations, I ask that you please direct it to council, and you have 5 minutes to speak. So is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the project? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the project? And last call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Could you give your name and, oh, I think I know who you are, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nick Palladino. I prepared the design scheme that you have in your package on behalf of the Woodwards, and they're not here today, but I'm here on their behalf. Hillary's done a good job of outlining the proposal, so we're happy with the recommendation to proceed. Hopefully see it at the subdivision stage.
Okay. Thanks. Any questions for Mr. Palladino? Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Yeah, last call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Any last questions? I ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Clause. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. We wish to proceed with second reading. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will move second reading of bylaw 18-32.
Any discussion or questions? Call to question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Third. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we better wait till 11 o'clock, so. Let's move down to,
That was
I-1,
for, yeah, he's not here for this,
78K2,
he
Randy.
was here for the second one, not this one. No, these are all for the same one. That's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the February 14th council meeting, council requested that administration research the rights that a school board might have in accessing land trust funds. We received an opinion back from Brown, and it states that there is nothing in the MGA that would require the county to provide funds to a school board when requested. There is similarly nothing in the MGA that would provide for a school board project to take any kind of priority over a public park or a public building project that the county might have. What this recommendation, or what this opinion leaves is that all decisions for the land trust funds are in the hands of council for any funding that they would like to approve. The recommendation that administration has put forward to reduce the reserve from 500,000 to 250,000 was simply to provide more flexibility to council in approving projects throughout the year. All the funds that are not given out remain in a high interest account until projects are both approved and completed. If council does not approve any project through the year, then that money remains in that high interest account. There is nothing accounting for that money. So with that, we do believe that the attached revised land trust reserve policy fully complies with the MGA, as well as gives council the opportunity to approve the county as they see fit throughout the year.
Are there any questions? Yeah, Ken?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The minimum balance for, that would be sufficient to cover most emergency projects. Are those projects just regular emergencies, or does it still have to be, or county property?
Thank you. Anything that has to do with the land trust fund still has to be public parks, public buildings, or school boards. So it can only be, so say the council had already distributed the funds throughout the year and there was nothing, that $250,000 GIC, if you needed it and it was required, that's what we're thinking would be sufficient to cover if something was to come up through the year and you needed those funds, then we could cash the GIC. And that $250,000 would be sufficient to cover most emergencies that were to come up if council needed it and if the funds had been given out through the year and if we didn't have much coming in that year through subdivision and things like that. So it's just kind of a little bit of an emergency fund that's being held there just in case, but the land trust fund has never gotten to the point where all of the funds have been given out throughout the year. And it's even less likely now that the projects have to be so specific.
So could you run that by me one more? You're saying then that if there was an emergency, you could spend the 250,000 balance you keep in reserves? Is that what you're saying in that statement?
If council chooses. Like it's the reserve balance, the minimum of 250,000.
Yeah.
But it's held in a GIC that is cashable.
It's still in a reserve fund though, correct?
Yes, yes.
So it does need council approval
Yes.
for it to be spent.
Any funds in the land trust has to be by council approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it technically is not a amount that's withheld. If you can spend it, it's not something you keep.
Well, as I believe with most reserves, if you need it, it's there for you to access it, but it is held. And that is not, like it wouldn't be put forward to have projects come out of that reserve fund. Projects throughout the year would just come from the normal balance that is sitting in there.
So what would you consider an emergency? Larry?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think I have one example. Because it has to be, as we know, publicly owned property. For example, right now, the Diamond City Community Hall is owned by Lethbridge County. I suppose if, the roof were suddenly to collapse, just as an example, heaven forbid, and we thought, gee, that can be repaired, or a small part of the roof or whatever, for $125,000, but all we have left in the land transfer fund right now is $250,000 because we've distributed the balance. We could take $100,000 for that unexpected emergency, put it into public lands, publicly owned property, and fix that roof for the $100,000, just as an example. But we would only, I think, ever go there if it truly were an emergency and there wasn't some other alternative source of funding.
Yeah, and then Rob?
And just for clarity, what you're saying, Brandy, is that the land trust reserve very likely will never get down to that 250. And with the new requirements and specifications, it's even less likely that it would get down to that 250,000. Is that accurate?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, throughout the years, typically the land trust reserve gets replenished anywhere between about 70,000 and 300,000, depending on how many subdivisions are done through the year. So each time a project would come forward to the council, we would let them know how much money is left that can be spent in there that is not counting the reserve, and then the projects are going to be approved in that fashion. But we have never given away as much money as comes in. So there would be funds in that account typically, and
So this is in an extraordinary circumstance that you would get down to the 250. And I think what you're saying is that's a buffer if you ever get down that.
it is a buffer. And right now, the way that the money was getting out was because we had so many extraneous projects we were allowed to give the money to, and now that it's only to public buildings or parks or schools, the likelihood of us spending the money that comes in is very small. But if council were to approve enough projects that we used all the money that came in through that year, as well as any of the funds that we have left over still going forward, then it's just a little bit of a buffer. Council is free to leave the reserve at 500,000 if they so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question on, so if we would have an emergency or whatever, that we would have to access that money, and like you said, it's in a GIC, would we even have access to it? Because a lot of times with GFC, it's locked in for a certain period of time.
We would lose a portion of the interest, but we can access the GICs through the year. Yes.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To me, it kind of sounds like if we put a strict limit on the minimum balance, we're kind of restricting ourselves if there happens to be a big project, because there'd be very limited amount of projects we could really do. I mean, I'm okay with 250,000, but I'd also be okay with putting a zero minimum balance on it, just so we're not tying our hands in the future too much.
Tracy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I kind of look at it the same as our other reserves, like our snow removal reserve. We have, I think, a minimum $100,000 balance that we maintain in that reserve, and a number of our other reserves for emergencies, right? I think it is a good idea to maintain a minimum balance in this, just in case something does happen emergency-wise. But like Brandy said, there's anywhere between 80 and 300,000 a year that comes into that we do have to do on projects and stuff. I think that's more than enough. I think a minimum balance should be maintained in all reserve accounts just for emergency type purposes.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That minimum balance, that is policy, right?
Well, it will be.
It's not bylaw.
No.
So the thing is, if there's a real, what I'm trying to say, if there's a real emergency, we can still access that as a real emergency, to go below that minimum 250, because that's policy, and the policy can be changed if it's needed.
Well, currently policy is 500.
Mm-hmm.
So,
500.
yeah, we're being asked to bring it to 250.
Yeah, but we're discussing the 250, like Steve was saying, he would have even liked to see it go down to zero. Well, if it's needed, we could probably do that.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying.
If it's a real emergency.
I'm just saying that currently it is at 500.
Yeah, okay.
So what's being brought forward is to lower that 500 to 250.
Yeah.
So what is the balance in a bank account?
The physical bank account balances, including the GIC, is about 800,000. If you take away the GIC, we're at about 300,000, as well as we have about 170,000 that's already been spoken for and just not been paid out yet for projects that are not complete. How much is the GIC? 500,000.
what would those projects be that have been carried over? Are
well,
they from
sorry.
prior years where we gave it out, that we probably shouldn't be giving it out?
That is correct. All of the organizations have 2 years to complete their project. So in 2017, we've given out about 100,000 in grants, and most of those have not been completed yet at this point. Last year, we gave out 2 from the Land Trust grant, and one of those has not been completed yet. And there's also still some in 2016 that have come forward and asked for a little bit of an extension. So there's just a couple of projects out there that have not been completed.
So at the last meeting, or the last time we discussed this, it was brought up that we could use this for public playgrounds, things like that. So did you bring forward a list of how many we have? We don't know, we didn't seem to know how many we have. So do we have any ideas of how many we have?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Mr. Chairman. I do have an inventory provided through our Ag Services Department, who are the ones who generally maintain the playground. There aren't a whole lot. I'm going to say 5 or 6. I'm sorry I don't have it right in front of me, but it's not many. We're working with that, and it's part of the number as we look at recreation and the broader scope of things under the context of the intermunicipal collaboration framework agreements that we have to do. But there are a minimal number, not a whole lot, as I say, in the range of 5 or 6.
Some of them are walking paths, it looks like through Roxburgh and things like that. There's walking paths that are considered our own public park areas that we're able to improve.
Roxburgh, you said?
What is Roxburgh?
Yeah,
Is it a walking
the
path?
business park.
Roxburgh and one of the subdivisions to the west of the city, Meadow. Sunset Acres.
So some of them are physical parks that have playground equipment, and some of them are just kind of like public parks that have green space, and those are tips things we can improve. And Diamond City, I believe, is the only building that we actually own.
So then what would our liability be like if we had an emergency? Do we absolutely need to use more money for it? Like, what do you deal with then? Like, if you lower the, I guess my point is, if you lower the balance from 500 to 250, do we technically have room to handle a true emergency? And Diamond City could be a perfect example, the building there. Like, we have no idea currently how much it should be, or are we in a position where we should be replacing that building? Rick?
Yeah, so for Diamond City specifically, I mean, that's the one example that we have, but another such example could be Monarch, where when we take down the water tower in time, or if that comes to fruition, then we would end up with a green space that would very likely become a park. However, if we don't have any room in that fund to do that, it's going to be difficult to do those projects. And when we're close to that balance of, when you look at the numbers, there's only a limited number of dollars. So if Diamond City does come forward, we're going to have to recommend against it, because the policy, that the ask would take us below the policy limit. So as administration, because the policy's in place, we have to recommend that, or we revise the policy again. But emergencies, we don't have a ton of emergencies, park related.
And I think through the asset management process too, we're going to find a little more clearly the state of all the infrastructure, buildings included, and we'll have a clearer idea of what's in disrepair or in need of repair, and a greater idea of the actual cost. So, I mean, that doesn't help us now, but it will a few years down the road. Maybe one.
Ken?
Just on that Diamond City, where is it at now?
So under the asset management program, we have to do condition assessments of all of our facilities. And that RFP is out, should be closed. I'd have to ask Devin if it's either closed already. Okay, so closed. So we have a consultant lined up to do the condition assessments, and then we'll bring them in as part of that program to do a condition assessment, and hopefully a preliminary indication of what work needs to be done to bring that building up to speed. With a preliminary assessment, then we can put together some costs and bring that forward.
Okay. I'm sorry. So when will that be?
In the next month or so, I would guess. That's the first one on the list to get done. Our consultants know that time is of the essence with that building.
And it's been 3 years, 4 years.
So I would think we're a little premature to lower the limit personally, until we know a little more. So I would not support lowering.
I have a suggestion, if council is uncomfortable with lowering the limit, leave it at the 500,000. We can go through a year, that way we'd have a better idea of the assets and what the costs are, and then we could revisit it in a year and see if we want to lower the limit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment, if you lower the limit, it doesn't mean we have to use it, it's just, it's available, so we're not, like I said, tying our hands in the future, that's all.
Awesome.
But for now, I think, yeah, let's leave everything alone until we get some more information on the whole, and we're probably gonna have to discuss this.
Okay, well, we need a motion one way or another, so I don't. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will, move we approve, the revised policy 145 as it's presented.
Any further discussion? So the policy will be lowered from 500 to 250, Steve's motion. Okay? So I'm gonna call for the question then, if there's no further discussion. Those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Thank you.
So we have about 2 minutes till our public hearing, so we can have a couple of minutes break and we can get ready to close the public hearing. So Ken has made the motion. I'll call the question for those who are in favor. Those opposed, carried. Hillary, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. The public hearing that we're going to have right now is for Plan 0210-532 Lots 1 and 2 in Block 2. And this is in the southern portion of the south half of 14922 west of the fort. And an application has been made to amend the land use file for these parcels from Lethbridge Urban Fringe to Group Country Residential. Previous council direction and policy on this particular application, the county council approved the Cooley View area structure plan for this area, which guides development of the parcels on June the 7th of last year in 2018. In the fall of this past year, county council defeated a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw. And county council granted the applicant a waiver of section 53 of the land use bylaw, allowing the applicant to apply for the redesignation again prior to the 18-month waiting period, and that was in November of 2018. So the application has been made to amend the land use bylaw as mentioned from Lethbridge Urban Fringe to Group Country Residential. The parcels are located east of Highway 25 on Township Road 9 2 and are within the Cooley View Area Structure Plan. The proposed redesignation conforms with the approved area structure plan. Upon redesignation of the parcels to Group Country Residential, the applicant would have the opportunity to apply for subdivision of the parcels and development for residential use. The application was circulated to the county departments and external agencies for review. No objections were received with regards to the proposed application. And all the comments are included in your agenda package. The application was advertised in the March 5th and 12th editions of the Sunny South News and was sent to the adjacent landowners. At the time of this report, one call was received from an adjacent landowner expressing concerns with the proposed redesignation. They had also had concerns at the time of the area structure plan with regards to impact to adjacent farmland and the Cooley stability. County administration would recommend for this application that second and third reading be approved based on that the application does comply with the Cooley View Area Structure Plan. Are there any questions of council at this time from administration?
Seeing no questions? From council? So at this time, we would open to the public. And I would ask that you direct your comments to council and that you limit your discussion to 5 minutes. And your discussion is to be on the redesignation of the area zone, not on anything that is related to what we've already passed in an area structure plan. Okay? So I would ask now, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anyone wishing? Can you please give your name?
Good morning. My name is Larry Wojcik. I'm on Pauline Wojcik, passed away, but the property to the east of the said proposed division. We're in favor of the proposal, but we had concerns that we had requested answers to going back from the meeting initially on June 7th, 2018. And if I can keep this to 5 minutes, if I can just go through this. I mentioned our concerns regarding the development. We're in favor, but without realistic concerns being answered on paper. Some of these concerns were stumpage, environmental issues, garbage fencing, no trespassing signage, potential liability for damage from loss, slope protection, etc. There have been properties that have had slumpage issues. Park Royal, Lethbridge area west of Staffordville behind the German Canadian Hall, Southridge area by the airport, Falcon Ridge on the west side. I'm sure these properties were studied, evaluated, and now analyzed by professionals before development. The city of Lethbridge ended up having to deal with the properties to the west of the German Canadian Hall. Is the county potentially going to put themselves in a possible situation here going forward? Next meeting, October 18, 2018, 4 months after June 7. I did a presentation using a computer showing existing issues in the Cooley landscape, garbage, concrete, wood, and an old pond. You, the councilors, view these pictures of the property. I left a copy, of a red folder to be on file and looked at later at your convenience. Again, our concerns were given again, and there was no attempt to answer them by paper. Nobody has presented us with any signed paper taking responsibilities for common questions, really. Who is going to protect the adjacent landowners, present and futuristic landowners down the road? October 18, 2018 to March 21st, 5 months have transpired from October 18. 9 months since June 7th. I have had 2 situations that were unexpected to happen to me, unplanned, uncalled for, frankly made me quite uncomfortable, awkward in both my place of work. The first is just before Christmas 2018, Mr. Farino entered my workplace. He wanted to talk to me, he was shaking, he was agitated. I invited him into my office to sit down and calm myself down. He wanted to know why we were asking so many questions. He was observed by other co-workers being a little loud. This wasn't the place or the time to talk about this in any other conversation. I had said I had to get back to work. Second situation was after the new year. Mr. Rob Fiorino showed up at my workplace. Didn't know for sure what he might be after, but he wanted to talk to me in my office. Again, this topic was brought up by Rob. I again was made uncomfortable. This wasn't the place, time to discuss this. We basically agreed to disagree. I'm disappointed and ashamed that we haven't had anyone step forward and take responsibility on paper for any aspects of our concerns. None from the county, developer, environment, etc. Again, who are the landowners, present or future, going to turn to for answers? What recourse will be available? Why isn't there any? Thank you.
Council, have any questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Yes, sir? Let's go, please. Gentleman back there. The gentleman back there was first.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay.
Sir, Gary.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Norm Waffle. I'm not an adjacent landowner, but we rent the parcel of land directly to the north of this proposed site. Currently, what we're doing with that property is we're using it for grazing, and every summer for 4.5, 5 months, I have about 110 cows, 110 calves, and 4 bulls in that pasture. My problem is that if this goes to away from an agricultural piece of property to a residential, we're going to have lots in there with people with dogs, and I'm going to have a problem. A lot of people move to the country to have freedom, and freedom's going to hurt me. So the cows are a big problem, and I think that you would all say, well, my goodness, how could this guy go to sleep at night when he's got, $400,000 plus cows on the move? And if they're being chased, how would I ever prove that that happened? So I need answers. I need to know who's going to do some fencing. It's fenced properly now. In the 3 years I've grazed, none of my animals have ever crossed into the other property. And I maintain the fence, but it is of course not a fence to hold dogs or children or motorcycles. I mean, it's going to be a problem. So I would look at you people that are farmers and I'd say, if you put this property right next to where you are and you went to bed at night, could you sleep? Because I can't. Other problems I have is if we plow the tractor out, I'm going to be growing canola. I spray with airplane every time that we spray. And last year I got attacked by a person on another property from a acreage owner, and they accused me of spraying with Roundup, which is not the case. So there's going to be spraying problems. There's going to be overspray with irrigation. I have a pivot there. If a north wind comes up and goes up that fence line, and the north wind comes up with a squall through the night, it's going to be on top of the houses, because the drift will carry for a long ways. So I have that problem. We generally manure our land about once every 6 years, and when that one's due to be manured, I'm going to be looking at some problems there. I have the same problems as the Wojciaks have with that garbage. I think in construction, the place is a mess right now. The weeds are 3 feet high and they drift over the fence, get stuck in the fence. And garbage is blowing into my place constantly. And I don't believe it should be turned into houses, because the slope on that draw going down into Wojciaks is terrible. There's no drainage. When the water runs down that drain, it goes on to his field. And it's still a quarter of a mile from the river in any direction. And I don't know why a neighbor should have to have a drainage to his field. So those basically are my problems. We're a family that's been around since 1899, and my son can't be here today, he's calving cows out, so I have to try to do this without him. My grandson's 18 and he's wanting to farm, so that'll be 5 generations. And I'm thinking, you know, why should we have to be compromised like this? And that's my main problem. It's totally surrounded by agricultural land, and I know that, and you know that there's a slippage. Larry mentioned it. There's a bentonite seam in there. I've not gotten answers on how deep they dug the holes.
So just, I'm gonna stop you there.
Okay.
The slumpage or slippage has nothing actually to do with rezoning that we're dealing with. That was from before for the area.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I feel that if it's kept in agriculture, I have a better chance to be a good neighbor in the area. That's pretty much all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to.
Are there any questions? Okay, I guess not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and next, for anyone who's in opposition.
My name is Gary Wojcik. I'm here on behalf of my mother, Mrs. Pauline Wojcik. Issues that I can see right now are as you turn off Highway 25 onto what appears to be a road allowance. There's a sign there that says 9-2. Okay, you enter off the highway, you go a couple hundred feet, and there's a steel structure with gates. I don't know if that's allowed on a county road. If it is, if there's a permit you need to get that, so be that. The concern is if we have any fire problems, how will the equipment get in there with that steel structure across the county road? Like you say, there's a gate actually there too on it, so I don't know if it closes at night or whatnot. Also, running that from west to east along the road allowance on the south side of that proposed subdivision is a main line, and it runs all the way to Mr. Farino's home. As we well know, main lines aren't totally sealed, and it seems like there's some weepage that has occurred where there is slumpage that has occurred on the southern portion of that start of that coulee. Is that the start of what's going yet to come? And third is running from west to east, there's an Altalink power line, 240K, with 90-foot poles. Have they been here to address any concerns with setbacks of any housing built or any of that nature? We don't know that. That doesn't seem to have been presented. Our concern is, again, for the future. What you decide today is going to be a concern for the future of the people that are going to move on these little acreages and whatnot as well. Like I say, our main concern is fire. Anything from the west is going to come to the east, which we are on. And anyways, so that is my 3 points of concern, and appreciate your time. Is there any questions?
Any questions? No,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? Yes.
Again, well, you know, it's Milo, yeah. First thing, I'm taking a bit of offense to Mr. Wojcik. I don't know what my dad said there. We talked about it. It didn't sound like it was dramatic is what he brought up. When I went to see Mr. Wojcik, I made sure he had time to speak to me. I was completely civil. I understood his concerns about not getting answers, so I was trying to find out what he wanted. I suggested again, and now this will be the third time, to go speak to Mark Sovereign, who is the expert in this area on this frontage. I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but that caused us to be here again, and I don't think we should be here right now, and I think you'll agree that it's a bit of a waste of time. So I asked them again, I said, take your pictures, go see Mr. Sabrin. He's been here for 20 years. He's been doing this. He knows everything. He knows all about the Bentonite seam. I asked Mr. Wackmo as well to speak to him about it. So I'll just move on from there. So, something I just said here, sorry, I'm going to forget you. So he hasn't followed up to see Mark. He's not interested, I think, in trying to find out the answers, which every question you guys have come up with for me, I've tried to find out how can I answer you guys, how can I, clear your minds. Can I speak about the Lindsay Silt, the Bentonite seam briefly? Or
Well, actually, that's really not what we're here for today. It's strictly on rezoning.
Okay, so first I want to just say that my dad has spent a lot of money and we've hired these experienced engineers, and they're engineers with integrity, and they're local, and they understand this area. They're not, we didn't hire someone from out east to come in. These guys know what they're doing. Mark Sabrin worked for the city to specify the setbacks that the city uses right now. And we have erred on the side of safety. So this setback that we've got is over and above what we could have done. So we've erred on the side of safety on all of this. So I found out that there's probably three basic concerns. The first is who would be responsible, and Tetra Tech was very clear that they are responsible if anything were to happen to these homes with regard to the setbacks. They've got insurance that follows them. There have been discussions about, well, what if they pack up and leave? They're a large company. They've got insurance that follows behind them, so it's not going to happen. There was concern about the ag land, as Mr. Wackmo brought up, which I understand, but as far as the land itself, I don't think it lends itself to effective use of space. I understand his concerns. I think the people that live on acreages aren't quite as out of control as maybe he's worried about. You'd hope they wouldn't be their own neighbors. We've got to live together. So. And the third was there was a question about a mix of industrial and residential, and whether it should be just residential or just industrial. But I think that portion to the west along Highway 25, being the lumberyard, which it is zoned for already, I think it's an advantage to not only the people that live there in the proposed subdivision, but to Colhurst, Diamond City, Picture Butte, to surrounding landowners. If there is a lumberyard and stuff there, it would be a quick, easy access. You don't have to go all the way to this. Also, any issues or concerns will be addressed in the development agreement that we will have to make with the county at the time of the subdivision. So there'll be a lot more to deal with about the fencing and trespassing signs and access and things like that. When I went to Mr. Boychuk, I gave him my card and I told him, I made it clear to him, I said, I'm going to be the point of contact. And 24/7, anyone can contact me. My work demands that I'm on call all the time. And I have no problem working with all these neighbors on this. So I'm a bit disappointed that he didn't take my advice and just go talk to Mark, take pictures, go with Mr. Wackmo as well. He could answer so many things. He just knows so much. He's very passionate about all of this stuff. So, I think that's about it. Sorry, I'm a little flustered. So I'll pass it to Ed.
Great.
Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Fiorito? Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Morning, my name is Ed Martin, and we are the prime consultants on the project. And I don't have a lot to say, but one of the things that I would like to bring up is that purpose of the area structure plan was to go through all of the issues from adjacent land uses to the stormwater to the slope stability. And the county has rules as to what we have to put into that area structure plan and what studies we have to do. We completed all the studies that were requested. We worked with your administration very closely. We hired the best expert that we possibly could to do the slope stability, which is Mark Savard, who's handled just about all of the coulee slumpage issues around Lethbridge. He's really the expert in southern Alberta on coulee slumpage. So we think we worked very closely with your administration, brought the area structure plan here, received approval, and in the area structure plan, it speaks to the zoning and what the zoning should be. So I guess I get surprised that last time it got turned down, because we have followed everything that the county wants us to do. The next point I'd like to bring up is just there were some questions before about who's responsible if there is slumpage.
So I'm gonna try and stop you there. I think we covered that off in the area structure plan.
Okay, I was just gonna mention a little bit about Tetra Tech, how large they are. They're not a small company. They have about 19,000 employees, and they are responsible. So that's all I wanted to bring up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Anyone else wish to vote?
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I probably have nothing to say. I was in front of this group, this was back in November, and at that time, there was some questions, and I answered them regarding slope stability, that type of thing. And my understanding was, when we came back at this time, that there may be other questions, so that's why I'm in appearance here today. But after his work said that you're not dealing with any slope stability, but I am here to answer any questions. I can comment on the discussions of the public who were against the subdivision. But they said if they were looking for answers, written answers, I can answer them here if you would like. But other than that, I'll just leave that to council to direct me to either talk or not to talk.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mark Savard? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Worship.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Okay. Is there any last questions of council? I would ask that for a motion to close the public hearing. Call the question in. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Okay, so we have a couple of options then. We move forward and do second reading and third reading. So I'm asking for a motion. Morrison.
I'll move that we go into the next section.
Any further discussion?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For me, it still goes back to the property to the west. 2 years ago, we approved it for a lumberyard. Now, we go ahead and approve this today. We pretty much surround a lumberyard with residential property. If it's on the flip side, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't put a house amongst a whole bunch of businesses. It just, to me, it just shows a lack of vision and planning for the area. I wouldn't be in favor of second reading.
But we're not actually adding anybody to that area.
If I may, we're adding, if we change it to reproduction residential, we're adding housing along that, along the boundary. It's a potential for conflict. Council and staff take these calls from the residents of, noise issues or hours of operations for a business. It's not the developer, it's council that takes these calls, and staff. Let's just take care of this from right now, not 5-10 years down the line, taking care of issues.
Any other discussion? Yes. Tori?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just to pick off on a couple of the comments that have been made to this point. I've struggled with this. We have dealt with it a couple times now. I've really struggled grappling with this. I think it's something that we constantly have to weigh as we move forward, is trying to find a balance. And I know when we have discussions in this room and strategic planning sessions, we have to try and make a balance between what a vision is going forward. And I would just like to stress that I kind of feel it, I take it as a bit of an insult when we're accused of not having a vision. There is a vision, but that vision has so many constraints upon it, and it has to change. It can't be just static. It has to be dynamic, and we have to keep changing as we move forward, because change is really, it's the inevitability. We talk about, I'm fortunate to be a fourth generation farmer. I think it's fantastic that we have family farms in our county that are still here and are still thriving. But as those farms grow and change and evolve, everything around that changes too. So we have to be cognizant of that. The way that my great-grandfather would have farmed and the surroundings that he was faced with are vastly different than what I as a farmer deal with today. And I have to come to grips with that. I have to come to grips with land that used to be standalone and was barren, now has residential development beside it. And as a responsible producer, I have to take the steps to try and satisfy the needs of those landowners, the desires of those landowners, that I'm doing a good job in my operation to be a part of the community, because at the end of the day, that's really what we are. So I'd just like to stress that as we move forward, we have to have a vision, and we do. As an addition to that, I would also say that I have a great deal of faith in our planning department, and I think we're constantly being asked questions. I have a lot of questions for you, I have a lot of questions. And the reality is that our staff, they do have a lot of answers because of the policies that we've, as a council and previous councils, have created. But at the same time, that evolves. And so our jurisdiction in that regard is also limited. We can't have answers for everything, because some of it just, quite frankly, falls out of our jurisdiction. And there's things that are out of our control, unfortunately, that go to other levels of government and to individual landowners. So we're limited in that regard. Toward the issue at hand, like I said, I have struggled with it. I appreciate all the information and everyone's passion. I personally wouldn't be in favor of second reading, and from the perspective that as we sit here at this table, people come forward, and I think as we look forward, one of those things that I look for in our vision is what brings value to the county. And I just really have a tough time as we sit here, how does this bring value to our county? And that would be my biggest issue. I think that the increased pressure on the infrastructure, the increased demands of that new community, I just don't feel comfortable with, and I don't see that as a value to our county. So that would be the reason for the way I'll vote today. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, we have, our staff has looked at everything. We had the engineers, we had everybody going, everybody did what they had to do. All the rules and regulations, permits, everything is in place. And we, with the area structure plan, And I think that, you know, we have to take in consideration, and we have to have trust in the people that we're dealing with that way too, and I think that with that, I would be in favor of going ahead with second reading, because I think that we're just holding ourselves back. What kind of limitations are we going to do? Are we going to change the rules and regulations for every different spot? I don't think that's the route we want to go.
Any other discussion? I mean, clearly we have a recommendation in front of us that's in favor of this, and that's the way I would respond. So I'm gonna call for the question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Now we have recommendation to move to third reading. So, pause. Any discussion there? Seeing none, call for the third question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
It's hard to do that. Good. I was good.
I'll just direct you to the lobby. Thank you.
Is that me? Oh, Al. Oh, yay. After lunch.
You can be the first on the barbecue then.
Love it. Shouldn't take more than 30 seconds or something, right?
Al?
Invitation. Not even cool.
So our first invitation is 20th Independent Field Patrick. Yeah.
I'll move that we have our reeve or designate attend that.
Any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 2 is Lethbridge College Convocation and Honorary Excellence Event. 99 to 103. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that the Reaver designate be authorized to attend the Lethbridge College Convocation and Honoring Excellence event scheduled for April 25th and 26th at the Impact Center.
Any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. And then the next one is page 104 to 106. And that's for the Lethbridge wing.
I'll move that we have our reeve or designate attend.
Any further discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Okay. February the 1st, I attended Mayors and Reeves. And February the 4th to the 6th was the Alberta Irrigation Projects in Calgary. that that makes a good headway to our report on our meeting coming forward on the 27th. February the 7th, Brown v. Emerging Trends. February 14th, of course, council. February the 15th, had lunch with Van and the Nobleford Mayor and CEO, and that was a rather interesting event. I'm not quite sure what they really wanted, but they told us how great we were, and anyways, I'll leave it at that. The February the 16th Lethbridge Chinese New Year celebration was a great event. Again, we were very welcome there. So, February the 19th, the city and county airport meeting, and at that time, the airport, the city wants to move the time frame of taking over the running of the airport forward. We haven't heard back anything yet. The 22nd, the council wage discussion, we had that meeting. 28th, Rotary Club presentation, and apparently since then we've moved forward on that as well. And we also attended the exhibition for the ag presentation for the scholarship award in there. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next one. Ken?
Okay, on the, went to the irrigation projects and then Brownlee, the end of Birch Trends, and then the council meeting on 14th, and the wage discussion on the 22nd.
Any questions? Next. Vision 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for February, we had an ASB, it was a face-to-face meeting. There's currently a review of the ASB program and the grant program underway. So this was just a chance for voting ASB members to get together and with government staff and other representatives to just talk about what was happening with the ASB program, what we'd like to see in the future, what could change, how could that evolve. So that was just at the Research Center here in town. On the 8th, as part of my role on the Lethbridge Regional Waste Management Commission, we got a tour of the Lethbridge landfill. Saw the facilities there, the work they're doing to construct their materials sorting facility for their recycling project. And then we had a council meeting on the 14th. And just as an aside, I'd like to thank Gary and his ASB staff. Both Steve and I attended farmer pesticide training course sponsored by the county. It was well attended, and I think it's great that our ASB puts on events like that and hosts events like that can engage our producers. So just a thank you.
Any questions? Next, please, would be Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of obvious, it was a pretty quiet month. Started on the 6th with the ASB face-to-face meetings, and like Tori said, it was just kind of a way of our region getting together just to find if there's any little tweaks or things we can change with the program. It was also good to even learn a little bit more about what the program does. The 14th had a council meeting, and the 26th had a community futures Lethbridge meeting.
Any questions for Steve? Next report.
Okay. February 1st, we had a Highway 320 meeting. February 5th, South Road Prairie Electric Car event we went to. And then the 14th was a council meeting.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you bet.
Bob, can you just maybe give us a little update on the Highway 3?
Highway 320, we're not really allowed to talk because everything's going on right now. It's probably not being taken over by somebody else to run it after this, so.
That's kind of where I was going, yeah.
So let's, it's still hush hush.
Thank you. So, I do have a question on the electric car event.
That was a neat thing.
Was it pretty well attended, or,
Well,
and where is it?
It was at the college.
And where's it moving to from there?
Well, because they've got now they've got at PV Marts as a plug-in, then Fort McLeod, they're gonna have one every 60 kilometers or something, plug in to plug these cars, but it will take, about 24 hours to generate a car.
So are there different kinds of outlets?
Yeah, because Tesla has to have their own.
Okay.
When is this all gonna happen, Bob?
Well, there are, the Fort McLeod one, there's about, the majority are already built, they're just, they just showed the cars and what they are, yeah, it was just and they wanted to promote it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. February the 4th or 6th, that was the Public Education District Association, not the IPA anymore. The attendance down there from the province, like the minister or even some of the MLAs, it was none. It was pretty sad. Like, you know, irrigation is a very big entity in for Alberta, and I thought for sure that the agriculture minister was going to be there, but no, sir. And then February the 7th, we went to Brownlee. It was actually pretty good, yeah, Trent and whatever else. And February the 14th, council meeting. Thank you.
Any questions of Morris? Next step.
Okay, then, yeah, we had the irrigation meeting on the 4th and 6th, and then that was Brownlee, Virgin Trends, that came in right after that. Then February 8th, we had, like Tori mentioned, the landfill tour. And then we had a council meeting the 14th, and then I had a sale meeting in Strathmore at the 22nd.
Okay, any questions? Need a motion then to accept the report. Lance? Any further discussion? Call for question? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And I don't think we can have much time to move to lunch. We have a motion to go on. Motion. Those in favor? And that's with Len Taylor and Steve Hardy from the Old Man Regional Forest. I'll just turn it over to you guys and we'll go for it. What? All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Council. Lenz and I are here this afternoon just to present some information for you to share. We say new service because Ortsburg provides this service, but it's a new format is being unrolled at the request of a large number of our member municipalities. And that is a larger regional intermunicipal subdivision and development appeal board. So I'm just going to present a little bit of overview of the reasoning for that, why the request was made, and what that's going to look like, and provide some information for you here. the county decides to continue on your current path, or whether you are interested in joining and becoming a participant in that. So just to start, just as a little bit of a little background to set the stage. As you're aware that the Municipal Government Act was updated last year. We have the new modernized MGA, which made some changes, and some of those apply to the appeal boards. Prior to that, going back to 1995, when the Municipal Government Act came in, that former MGA had laid out some parameters that all the municipalities had to adopt a bylaw to establish a appeal board, which the county did and has. There's legislation in there about how you appoint members, the length of terms, if you provide remuneration, per diems for meetings for the board, that sort of a thing. Your current bylaw has that you have 5 members appointed. Your county appeal board is 5 lay members. Different municipalities get it different. Some appointed 1 councillor or 2 councillors, and a number of lay members. Some have a 3-member board, some have a 5-member board, some have a 7-member board. The MGA allowed the local municipality to determine yourselves how you wanted to make that composition to do that. One of the things under the previous legislation was that councillors could be appointed to the board, but they were not allowed to form a majority. So, for instance, if you had a 5-member board, you could appoint up to 2 councillors if you so chose. But those had to be councillors who weren't sitting on a municipal commission or something like that, so there's no conflict. But you could have a number of councillors appointed. As well, if you had an intermunicipal board, which a few of our municipalities in the North Region did, you could appoint all councillors on there as long as the majority wasn't from your own municipality. So for instance, we have a South Country Regional Appeal Board, which was composed of Coaldale, Barons, Nobleford, Coolhurst, and Butte, and each one of those had 1 councillor appointed. So when the board met, it was comprised of 5 elected officials, but only 1 from the municipality in which the appeal was being held. Similarly, Vulcan County had a regional appeal board with Lowman, Milo, Champion, Arrowwood, Carmody, and they had 7 members on that board, and each member was a councillor from each of those respective municipalities. So the former MGA allowed you to do that. So just as a comparison, there was a bit of probably 3 basic models that municipalities, especially southern Alberta here, were forming for their appeal boards. So the individual municipal board, in most cases, consists of 5 members, which is what Lethbridge County has. It could contain 1 or 2 elected officials, and the rest are usually members at large. Or it could be comprised entirely of local citizens. So that is what Lethbridge County has. You have 5 members at large, citizens, and councillor. We have a few that were operating as a kind of a hybrid, where they had, an example of this would be in Willow Creek, where they had 3 local citizens appointed to the appeal board, and then they had 2 elected officials appointed, but one of the elected officials was from the town of Stapley, and the other elected official was from the town of Fort Macleod. So the 2 elected officials weren't within their own municipality, they came from other municipalities. And then you had kind of the sub-regional model, which I described, which was kind of like the Vulcan County and the South Country, where it was all councillors, but from the different municipalities. So the changes that occurred last year to the MGA is that they came into force January 1st, and there's some requirements that have to occur by this April 1st, 2019. One of those, or actually 2 of them, is that all the appeal board members, senior tier appeals, have to take the provincial training and pass the exam to be certified. The same goes for clerks who assist the board in their duties. So after April 1st, if they don't have training, they can't sit on an appeal board. hear an appeal. As well, one of the other major things is that they changed legislation, so it says that you must not have more than one counselor as a member. And the interesting point about this is that it doesn't matter which municipality you're from, you can only have one counselor. So, something like the South Country or the Vulcan Regional, which had a counselor from 5 or 7 municipalities, Municipal Affairs says that with this legislation, they can no longer do that. They can only have one counselor appointed. So even though the other elected officials, when they sit, the Arrowwood counselor sits in Vulcan to hear an appeal, he's technically already not a counselor in Vulcan, but they said as long as he's elected official, he can't sit. Counselors can't sit from the majority, it doesn't matter where you're from. So that's one of the major changes. So that doesn't impact Lethbridge County so much because you have citizens at large sit, but it does affect a number of the other municipalities out there who use other counselors from other communities to sit on their own appeal board, and they can no longer have that competition. One of the other changes as well is that they added a little bit of extra wording in that said that the board can meet in panels, and 2 or more panels can meet simultaneously. So what that is really is referring to a model like the Provincial Municipal Government Board, and that is that the Municipal Government Board, for example, has like 50 members appointed to the board, and then from those 50 members, when they sit here and appeal, whether it's in Calgary or Edmonton or Lethbridge or Coaldale, those 5 individuals they send down, that's the panel that hears an appeal and says they can meet simultaneously, so you can have an appeal going on in Edmonton, Leduc, Lethbridge, Fort McLeod, whatever, all meeting at the same time. So legislation allows them to say the panels can meet simultaneously, so that's what it's saying. So you have a large number of members appointed to the overall board, and those board members, when they're sitting on the local appeal, they're sitting as a panel, so you form a panel on that. So it's a little bit of a different language, but it's kind of based on the municipal government board format. So one of the other things as well is that along with the mandatory training for both clerks and for the appeal board members, is that they also must take a refresher course every 3 years. One of the things, I know a lot of the appeal boards, often they appointed a member for 3 years or 4 years to sit on a term kind of thing. A lot of the appeal board bylaws for municipalities say that they can appoint that member for a 2nd term. So one of the things now is that if municipalities are going to do that, that member who's going to continue to sit has to go back and take a refresher course every 3 years in order to continue to sit on the board, as well as the same for the clerk's assistant. So the clerk component for most municipalities in the North Region is probably not too big of an issue or concern. So I would say that Worsk does the clerking, the secretarial assistants for probably 35% of all the appeal boards in Southern Alberta. So we have 7 clerks trained and certified in our office. So for most municipalities, that's not an issue because they rely on us to do it. But the clerks as well, that's the same particulars apply as well for training. So looking at the Regional Appeal Board, the intermunicipal model itself, what are some of the issues and benefits of it? As mentioned, there's the new limitation about we have 1 elected official to sit here and appeal. So this is an issue for some municipalities that they have up to 2 counselors appointed, or they're on the intermunicipal model where it's all made up of counselors, so that no longer is allowed, no longer can work, so they have to change. The mandatory training of board members that's required. This is one of the aspects why a lot of the municipalities in the North Region came to us and asked us to look to put a larger regional board together. Is just now with the mandatory training required to board members, there's a concern that they're going to have trouble getting enough members at large to sit, having to do the training, make the commitment to do that, the time commitment, the costs associated with having people trained. There's a number of our municipalities were already experiencing problems over the last couple of years of getting enough citizens to step forward to sit on the appeal board. This last 6 months, a few of them made changes where they were boring appeal board members from other municipalities because their bylaw said that they had 3 or 5 members appointed, but they'd advertised and they only had 1 person come forward. So they had 4 or 3 vacancies sitting that they couldn't fill because nobody was coming forward to put their name in for that, so they were experiencing problems. So we had to change some bylaws on the fly here to allow them to borrow from other municipalities. So now with mandatory training, that's a concern. As well as ensuring quorums available. So there's a larger pool of board members to pull from, then you can guarantee almost for every appeal that you actually have a quorum to proceed. We had some municipalities as well, if they had 3 members or 5 members appointed, and sometimes when an appeal is scheduled, because it has to be scheduled and occur within 30 days of an appeal being filed, that in some communities, sometimes it happened that a couple of the members were away, were down south on vacation when the appeal came in, or a member was sick or something like that, and they had no quorum to go ahead and run the board because there wasn't enough people available. And then as well, with the mandatory clerk training, time and expense as well. One of the other aspects too is that now there's also mandatory reporting to municipal affairs of the board compositions, who those members are for the municipality, if they have their training, when that was done, if they're getting recertification as well, those records have to be kept now, they have to be filed to municipal affairs on a yearly basis, but also as changes occur, if people quit or there's new members appointed, that type of thing, has to be filed with municipal affairs as well. So, some of the benefits and why some of the municipalities asked us to put together this broader regional model is that the regional municipal board would provide a pool of hopefully more qualified members to draw panels from. The mandatory training of the board members would be shared between the partners. So the municipality can appoint less members than they had in the past. So if you had 5 members and the municipality had 5, that type of thing, that's 10 members you're saying in training. Well, with the model we proposed, you don't have to appoint 5 members, you can appoint 1, 2, or 3. So there's less many borrowing from the other municipalities. So you don't have to have 5 members trained. So there's that less time commitment and cost for that. Hopefully easier to attract public citizens. You'll need less of them. Also, if they're sitting on appeals more frequently, hopefully they show up for those. We've had a few cases where municipalities indicate because they only have an appeal once a year, every 2 years, that some of the members lose interest because they're not meeting very frequently to sit on the boards. As well, you can also stagger the training to amongst the municipalities when people are appointed to ensure that there's always a pool of people trained who have the provincial training. As well, with the larger pool, it also helps ensure that there's always a quorum, because you always have people around to draw from. If your own individual representatives are away or not available, go to the next person on the list to draw from. So with the larger pool, there's more people available on the dates you need to hold an appeal. As well as some of the municipalities hope that with a larger pool of people trained who are sitting more frequently to hear appeals, that they'll hope to get better decisions on their appeal boards because they'll be moved more frequently on a more frequent basis. Some of the benefits as well, mandatory clerk training, whereas we provide the clerkship for the board. We currently do for Lethbridge County anyways. Like you mentioned, we do for probably 85% of municipalities in southern Alberta. On the regional model, Horace would manage and take care of all the record keeping for municipal affairs of all the board members when they're appointed, when they need their refresher course, and all those sorts of things. And depending on the board composition, there may be an opportunity to have regional as well as local expertise, depending on who's appointed and the composition of those. We also have, since the talks began with the municipalities over this last year in this, we've had a number of meetings with the CAOs on it. We've also had some experienced people who used to be either administrators or retired as administrators or sat on appeal boards previously, we've put the name for that if some municipalities don't have citizens at large to say that type of stuff, they'd be willing to be appointed to the board to fulfill that role on their behalf. So with that, what are the options here for yourselves or all the municipalities in moving forward with the new changes under the MGA? First option is just do your own appeals, individual municipality, appoint your own members, run your own boards, have your own clerk trained to assist the board in own duties. You can have your own board, use Morris as the clerk. So this is the current Lethbridge County arrangement. You have 5 citizens at large, 22-year board, and to assist with their duties and running the hearing and put their decision together. Whereas clerk from Morris works to assist the board in that. So that's your current composition. And then the third option would be to go to the regional board, which would be the intermunicipal board with the other partnering municipalities, and for Morris to act as the clerk in that capacity. And I'll show the lens here, and you can maybe elaborate on this, but this was an initiative that was kind of brought forward by the municipalities, and probably the majority, or over 30 of our 42 so far, have expressed interest in joining. I think we've had at least half dozen more already passed the bylaw we sent out and have joined. Some are eager to get signed up here before April. And just as a note as well, in putting this together, the format is similar to the Regional Assessment Review Board on the property assessments, which Lethbridge County participates in with Morris on that model. So it'd be kind of a similar model to that your municipalities are already familiar with.
Great, thanks, Steve. Guess I get to do the closing arguments here. First of all, thanks for the invite today. It's a good opportunity for us to touch base with you on this particular service. I do want to stress, though, that we're not going to leave anyone behind. The way we currently do things can continue, and we offer a lot of flexibility in the regional approach that we're taking as well. So with that in mind, we did put together a package. There's an agreement, a bylaw, and a fee schedule, and a procedural guideline that goes along with all of this. And we are proposing the fee of $500 per year to manage all of that and to ensure training is up to speed. We also have allowed some flexibility in terms of composition within the bylaw. I think that comes up a little later. But there is, on top of that $500 fee, still the fee per hearing that would take place, and that's similar to what is currently in place, right? So per games for the board members or panel members, mileage, cost of photocopy, all those things will be borne by the municipality that is holding the hearing. The next one. So there are a number of benefits to joining the regional board, and in putting together this whole package, we did consult with the CAOs of all of our members, and we had a board or a CAO committee struck of 6 who provided a lot of input. Anne was part of that committee as well and provided some input into the arrangement. So Steve, I think, touched on most of these. It's I think it's just something that will be easier for our members to utilize rather than organizing it themselves. And so there's less turnover. We would ensure everything would work smoothly, quorums, all those things, etc. So we'll be taken out of the hands of you in terms of administration. There would still be input. We would still have a CAO committee that would provide review on an annual basis. So with that, we do have a bylaw, and that has been presented, I believe, to most schools at this point. April 1st is the cutoff date for having something in place. And like I mentioned earlier, we won't leave anyone hanging. If municipalities choose not to partake in the intermunicipal model, they can, as Steve mentioned earlier, they can would establish and authorize the SDAV. Then there's an agreement with us that outlines our duties and responsibilities as the coordinator and has a fee schedule attached to it. There are per diems for the board members that sit, and mileage as well would come into play there too. It is considered a fee for service, and it is basically user pay other than the $500 administrative fee. Go to the next one. We did establish some procedural guidelines just so that our municipalities would know what the coordinating role would be, what the clerk's responsibilities would be, what the board member responsibilities would be, etc. So everything is outlined and put in place before we have any hearings. So there's some certainty and some knowledge that goes with that. Okay, we did in the bylaw provide for some flexibility. A number of our panels from various municipalities have 3 sitting members, some have 5, some have 7. We didn't want to take that away from the municipalities, so we provided that option. Some of that will depend obviously on the size of the municipality and the number of hearings that they have and the costs that might be associated with that. But there is some flexibility there. We've also allowed for municipalities to provide for panel members. There's a little bit of a formula to that. We're a little concerned about having everyone provide a panel member. If we have 35 of our municipalities partake, we're going to have 90 to 95 members, and that's just too big for us to manage, and also wouldn't be fair to those members if we've been sitting enough to gain any experience. So we're hoping for anywhere between 15 and 20 board members, and from that we could select our panels. So obviously we're looking probably for more lay people than we are councillors, and we'll see how that shapes up. We may have to change a few of our rules. So the agreement's good.
Yeah, maybe a little bit further to that. In the bylaw we presented, we had recommended that if you're appointing 3 members, that say that only one of them can be a councillor. If you're appointing 2 or only 1 member to the board, it can't be an elected official. Just because the fact if we had 30 municipalities join each one appointed a councillor, then we have 30 councillors, and then we couldn't sit because we have no lay members to pull from. So we had to kind of try to structure that to have more lay members appointed than councillors. But one of the other things as well is, depending in the end on how many municipalities do join up, and looking at the geographic areas, the idea would be to run it could be that if, depending on who is appointed and who's participating, but let's say if Pincher Creek and Crowsnest Pass joined Cowley, that sort of thing, that there's a appeal held in Pincher Creek, and they had 2 members. Well, the clerk setting up the appeal would pull first that 2 members of municipality from Pincher Creek, and then they go to the closest area, Crowsnest Pass, Cowley, Town of Carson, wherever it might be, Fort McLeod, to come to the appeal. So it's kind of from that geographic area. So we wouldn't have a member appointed from Brooks driving all the way to Pincher Creek, 2 hours whatever to hear an appeal type of thing, whatever, 2 hours home afterwards. So depending on how it ends up being, or what municipality joined and what the composition of members is, the procedural guidelines kind of outline some rules that first you take from the municipality and then the outlying area and move out whatever. So you have a bit of a composition from there, but like I say, you wouldn't necessarily have people drive 3 hours to go to the appeal and stuff, drive 3 homes later at night type of thing, to try to make it a bit more cost effective too on the mileage and stuff as well. But the idea would be to organize it in that fashion. So you might have, or it was probably best in the end if there was some pointed across the region, so you might have 3 or 4 pockets, where's the west and the east or the south kind of thing that you could kind of pull from, whatever. But that's kind of the idea, hopefully, of how it will play out in the end.
Any questions?
So I have a couple actually. So, if you have, say, would any of your members who are on there, would they actually hear an appeal from your municipality? like it's either if you had, say you had 5 members, and you have an appeal coming up, would you pull all 5 members from a different municipality in to hear that appeal, or would you use some of the ones you had or will have from your own to hear, or you kind of mix them up and say, send us to Tabor, or the appeal board be at Tabor, or the Tabor one to hear, or kind of how does that work?
Yeah, I think we would take direction first and foremost from the municipality, because some of them want a local person sitting on that board, and others don't want anyone local sitting on there. So the first point of contact would be to ask that of the municipality. And seeing as we can only have one counselor at any time, you know, that might be a counselor from that municipality and the city, and then the rest of the town would come from outside. But like Steve mentioned earlier, fairly local as well. Right, so we may pull, you know, for county elected, we may pull a tribute person for them, later quarters.
Okay.
Okay, so we're open to being as flexible as possible, taking direction from municipalities on how they want to impose this. Do you add to that?
Yes, that's part of the role that the coordinator would have was to keep those master sheets of the members, where they're from, what the municipality's preference is for members and stuff. So when an appeal comes in, they would go through that to say, okay, this is how Ledford County, or this is how Willow Creek wants their appeal board, and that's how it would be organized. I say, but it's kind of based on the flavor of the input from the municipality, how you would prefer it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So then, that, you know, if we don't have anybody on it, then, excuse me, you can take them to Colbert or Oldenburg or any other, all they would have to know is what our bylaws are.
Exactly, and we have built into our fee structure, kind of a learning opportunity or a pre-hearing opportunity for those members to read the bylaws and get familiar with it and get a little bit of training from the clerk as well. Because that is a little different than assessment, for instance, where there's one set of rules for the entire province. And here we're looking at individual land use bylaws for 34 to 40 municipalities. So that's a steep learning curve for anyone. So, yeah, there is opportunity for them to bone up on local issues.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How many appeals would you typically have in a year in your region, I guess?
The last couple of years, we've been averaging about 25 to 27 appeals. And I would say the majority come from the rural municipalities at this point.
So keep a smaller number, I guess, trained, that they're kept busier, I guess.
Exactly. The idea is that they become a little more experienced.
Yes, rather than once a year, twice a year, or once every couple of years. Okay.
I'll just give an example. We just got an appeal last weekend from a municipality who doesn't have any members currently appointed, haven't had an appeal in 2 years. And last time they advertised, they had, I guess, trouble getting, and they never followed through, and they don't have anybody on the appeal board right now. So we have to scramble this week to put together a bylaw for them to pass last night at council, to borrow from other municipalities to have an appeal, because we have an appeal in 2 weeks and they have no members on there. Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, it's not as big a problem maybe for the girls. I mean, sometimes too, you advertise and you only get one person who puts their name forward. But it's the smaller places, it is an issue. And I guess for some of them joining this, they're hoping that some of the bigger municipalities can appoint 2 or 3 members to help them out, so they have somebody to pull from, because they're having trouble. I know Barron's as well has nobody appointed to their appeal board, because last couple of years they advertised, they had nobody stepping forward to put the name forward to do it. So Barron's has signed up already, because they want to access the pool of people, because they can't get anybody to sit on their appeal board. So.
We've also been in touch with Municipal Affairs to date, and they have given us the go-ahead to provide training to board members as well, as long as we follow their guidelines and incorporated tests that they put together. They've given us the green light to go ahead there too, so that's, you know, a big plus for us.
And then who pays the expenses of the per diems and everything? Is it like if we have the appeal, we're the ones paying the?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically that part's the same for everybody, because if you have an appeal, your municipality is responsible, whether County Warren is doing their own now, if there's an appeal, they're paying their members to sit and all that, so that part is still basically the same. I guess the only difference is during the regional, is that some municipalities are paying different meeting per diems or different mileage or whatever. And by joining the regional, with some input from the CAO advisory team, they established, a flat or common per diem meeting fee structure and mileage and all that, so it would be the same across the board for everybody. So these are the meeting rates, and everybody gets paid the same. So if somebody's not paying, X amount, the other's paying $10 less, or whatever the case might be. So that if somebody, because then the danger would be if you get a counselor from Tabor who's used to a certain amount, and they go to the other municipality that pays half that, well, then they might say not to go to that appeal. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but this way everybody's treated the same, everybody pays the same, but you're responsible for your own appeal in your own municipality.
And the cost of those appeals can vary dramatically as well. We've seen, on average, the simple ones are about $2,000, and we've seen them as high as $130,000. Maybe you start involving lawyers and boxes and files and photocopies, and drags on for weeks. Yeah, so we thought, it's only fair that the municipality is dealing with the appeal, deal with the cost depending on how they want to.
Crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Steve, what are those rates, the per diem rates that are in the bylaw that everybody would pass?
They are different. Yeah, it's actually a schedule that we would attach to the bylaw, because we don't like fees within our bylaw, but they're basically the same as what we do for our assessments, regional assessment review boards, and they're $50 in preparation time for a 2-hour block, $100 for a 4-hour block, so if you just have one hearing in the morning and it's done, that would be $100 for final member, and a full day would be $200. Okay. And then mileage is based on the Canadian Revenue Agency model of 58 cents.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, you were earlier in your presentation there that you would also have urban and rural, like doing. Would the knowledge be there and everything, and the fairness of understanding urban to rural and rural to urban? Would that be a problem, or would you think it maybe it would work better?
Mr. Chair, it shouldn't be a problem. I think the most important thing for appeal board members, and what's kind of stressed in the training, what we stress when we do training, is that it's for them to understand how bylaws are written and what the bylaw, that making the decision, they have to look at the bylaw, and so it's more about interpreting the bylaw and looking at the rules and that sort of thing, whether it's urban or rural. They're supposed to consider the bylaw and the legislation that council has put in place. So that's the most paramount thing. We do have a number of models already, like Willow Creek is one, where they do have urban members sit on the appeal board. I think, for the most part, it might be different with the city of Lethbridge representing city, but it seems like most, the towns or the villages, because they interact with the rurals quite a bit, have a pretty good understanding of the rurals and some of the issues. But, usually through the material presented to the appeal board and through the bylaws and your MVPs and that sort of stuff, which is what they're supposed to base their decision on. I wouldn't say it's a major problem or issue.
Right. And the other question I would have is, we were talking about a 15 to 20 member board. Don't you find that having a large board like that would probably take longer to get things decided and support? Because everybody knows that the larger the board is, the less efficient that they work.
As Chair, the board itself would just be the people who are appointed to sit here in appeals, but for the appeal itself, it would be the panel members. So you only have the 3 or the 5 people sitting to hear an appeal and make a decision on it. So when we use the word board, that's just all the members appointed from municipalities, so that ends up being 20 or 30, whatever that number might be, comprise the regional board. But when there's an appeal, let's say Lethbridge County Regional, you have an appeal, to sit and appeal to make a decision on that permit or subdivision, it would only be 5 members. They would be the only ones. So the ones that are called to come to the hearing sit. So the board is the larger organization thing, and then the panel, the board panel is those who sit here. Yeah, so you wouldn't have 20 sitting on an appeal to hear it. You just have the 3 or 5, whatever that number might be that you want to hear the appeal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions? No? Can you wrap up?
Okay, well, it is a voluntary service, and we will accept people joining at any time, right? So it doesn't matter what you do this year. It's available this year, but if you want to come next year or the year after, that's fine. It's open-ended, and that's how it works.
Okay, thanks very much. That sounds pretty good, actually, so. Jeff McMahon?
Just to make a suggestion for council, I would suggest that perhaps staff could bring back a report now that we've had this information at a next council meeting, not the next one, Hillary's got nothing to do, but in new council meetings from now. Is that?
Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned April 1st, that's the start of,
That,
the
yes.
start of the board.
You
Well,
just need to have something in place.
Yeah, so it's my understanding, like, an example, Epridge County, all 5 of your members, my understanding, have taken the provincial training, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so after April 1st, they could continue to sit, and you use ORS to clerk, so we're all trained to clerk, so you're not in a jam, like some municipalities are in a fix because they don't have something, but you guys could continue on. So even if you decide not to, that's fine, you can continue operating the way you are. So if you do decide to join, whether it's a month from now, or 3 months from now, or 6 months from now, you would just make the switch at that time. But your members are trained. So the April 1st is where you have to have the mandatory training for boards, for clerks, and you can't have more than 1 council sit to an appeal. But I say that's not fair to you guys, because Epridge County's not set up that way, so you kind of hear it, so to speak, there's for some others.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Well, thanks very much for coming in today. That's good information. That was great. So we could accept the motion now for, receive this presentation. Of course. Put that in, right? Done. Okay. Any further discussion? Call for the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we have a subdivision, pages 58 to 72, that's 2019-0-027. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this subdivision application right here is to reconfigure property lines between 2 parcels, so a property line adjustment, by subdividing off 0.29 acres from the agricultural parcel to the north, which is just under 80 acres, and consolidating it to a 3.88 country residential title to the south. So the parcel to the south, which is this parcel right here, this long skinny one here, would be enlarged to 4.17 acres in size. The proposal does meet the criteria of the subdivision or the land use bylaws, and Steve will go through the planning comments and the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is what we call in the Commerce subdivision, just northwest of Diamond City. As described, and as Hillary is in there, you can see that we have an acreage, and this subdivision involves a land swap between the acreage and the agricultural title to the north. And some discussion between the 2 landowners, and you can maybe see a little bit on the air photo there, the unbeknownst to the 2 landowners, the acreage encroaches and spills over into the land, the agricultural title on the north side there. So the 2 landowners have made an agreement to do a land swap there, and to put the land that encroaches from the agricultural title, which is actually part of the yard, into the yard title to the south. In the yard there, it's some fencing, the landscaping and trees, and the north edge of the dugout is what encroaches. As well, the septic field system goes right up to the property line, where under the private sewage standard code, it's supposed to be 5 feet away from that property line. So the adjustment of the land is approximately a strip 20 to 25 feet wide and 560 feet in length there along the north perimeter. So with that, it would be a subdivision from the agricultural land, and then we consolidate it to the acreage title. So as Hillary mentioned, that would increase it to 4.17 acres in size. It's 0.29 acres is the land area. So with that, during the circulation, there was no objections or requirements. None of the utility companies require anything. I got some late comments in here just yesterday from, or the other day from APCO Pipeline, which got added in. They don't require anything. One of the things that we will do through the subdivision, besides the consolidation, is there is an encroachment, not related to the subdivision, but it's related to the parcel, so you can capture it now. Here maybe we'll highlight where her hand is. If there is an encroachment of a small movable shed, it's just 1.98 by 2.4 meters in size. That encroaches over into the county's road right away there. So there's a condition 4 on the suggested approval for you that just asks them to remove that encroachment from your right of way, just to move it off of there. So with that, no objections received. This does meet the bylaw for reconfiguration of titles, adjusting the property line. So I recommend an approval with you with the conditions of taxes being paid up to date, development agreement if required, the swap there of the land being consolidated by Alberta Land Surveyor, by a plan being registered, so we have no standalone title. And then the 4th condition references this encroachment of the shed into your county municipal road right away, that it be removed or relocated, so that encroachment disappears. So those would be the 4 conditions on there.
Any questions? Ken?
Okay, so the top part, which is, okay,
If you look on page 27, or 72,
yeah,
it shows you where the actual boundary is and the improvements on the yard that they want to include.
okay, so, but you're just moving that part
This,
right there, right?
it's just encompassing this northern strip here as being about 25 feet by 500,
560 feet.
560 feet.
Okay, and, with the, who's out there, there's a big house from there, I guess.
But the house is right here.
Yeah, okay. So what about the front part of it? The other rest of the,
This part here.
yeah,
There was no encroachments from the yard into there, in terms of like, so the dugout, the Quonset, or, yeah, wood building, and then, some landscaping here. I don't think this is just shrubbery, so there wasn't that was the agreement the landowners had made with regards to increasing the lot size.
oh, okay.
Yeah, 'cause the landowner wasn't interested in selling that part because there's no physical encroachments like there is with the dugout and the septic and that sort of thing. So they're just selling them what they need, so to speak.
And that's 29?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony Heiss and then, Penny Dodd.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Bob?
I'll move the recommended motion, subdivision 0190027.
Any other discussion? Call for the question, those in favor, those opposed, carried. Thank you very much.
So who takes care of the driveway or the county roads?
Roads? There are roads,
Yeah,
county roads.
and would, does somebody look after the plow mark going to the,
This one?
yeah,
It looks like it's mostly just trail,
yeah.
so I would doubt it.
Thanks, Steve.
You might close it one day.
Well, I think the guy's got a horse on it, correct?
There you go. Have lots of like this.
The cold and everything. I keep leaving because if I move around, then I figure out.
I just wanna make sure you're okay.
Do you think we have time to, do the,
You could always break at 2:30 and we're not done.
okay.
Thank you. Yeah. See you, Steve.
So yes, we'll do the council remuneration policy 177, 83 to 89.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So back at the organizational meeting in October, council appointed a committee of the deputy read, CAO, and myself to review the per diem policy, as well as the travel policy, which was brought forth at the last council meeting. Since that meeting, the administration did a bunch of research on various municipalities and their structures of pay. And the committee also met a couple times, as well as one meeting with all of council to go over a proposed policy change regarding the per diems and the way they're paid. Recommendations and direction from that last meeting that we all met at were incorporated into this. And we are bringing forth that policy that that incorporates a salary type structure for councillor pay that would be paid on a monthly basis, and with additional per diems being paid only for out-of-town travel and meetings outside of the, sorry, not just out of town, but out of the county boundaries. I'm not going to go through the whole policy in page by page, but if you turn to page 87, point number 5.3 there lists the recommended salaries for councillors, deputy reeve, and reeve. And then just down from that, proposing a annual travel allowance that would cover mileage costs for each councillor of their division for attending to those types of meetings, which is just regular day-to-day business of the county. Section 7 speaks to the per diems that would be paid for additional meetings, and those are conferences as per 711, which is the Ag Service Board meetings twice a year, Community Planning Association Conference, Economic Developers Conference, the RMA Conference spring and fall, as well as the FCM Conference. One slight change there from the previous policy, reeve and deputy reeve to attend each year, and 2 additional councillors to attend each year, although you can't attend consecutive years. So the change there is that there wasn't a cap on the additional councillors, now there is a cap of 4 in total. And then for additional meetings with government agencies and businesses on behalf of the county outside of the municipal boundaries, so if you travel to Edmonton to meet with ministers, grand openings and other meetings outside of the county, training as approved by council, and other functions outside of the county as approved by council or made at the request of the REIT. Per diem rates there remain unchanged from the previous policy, as this wasn't a rate review, but more of a structure and policy review. And then mileage also for those meetings would be in addition to the per diem, as it is now. And that is page 89 as well. Some direction received from that last meeting. Point number 9 there, extended absences. Is a counselor who is absent for more than 1 month will not be paid the basic rate or basic travel allowance for that period unless otherwise approved by council. I did also change 10.2. That just says we'll pay any premiums for Seniors Plus coverage if applicable. As there is some talk that currently there is no charge for Seniors Plus right now, but sometime there could be in the future, so I just left it as applicable. And I think that's about the only changes that I actually made to it. Are there any questions on the policy itself? I did also split them. As you know, the next policy is the SDAP member remuneration. So we did these, previously these two policies were merged into one. Just recommending to split them because they are different, so they each have their own policy.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The salaries were sort of calculated or brought out from so many meetings a month, or I guess how many meetings, and how it was brought together, I guess.
They are, so, thank you, Councilor Campbell. I did go through 2017 and 18 timesheets for all of council and flag any meetings that would fall into that salary type structure, as well as the meetings that would still be charged at a per diem rate. And just kind of use an average for it because everybody attends different things, but so that equals to 71 approximate full day equivalent meetings a year, plus 23.5 full day equivalent hours of prep time and correspondence and that type of stuff. So it's 93.5 full day equivalents of just day-to-day normal business meetings, prep, attendance, all of that, council meetings, budget meetings, committee meetings, workshops, parades, breakfast, all that kind of stuff. So, and that was an average. And when I did factor this new salary rate, plus what I think you'll attend this year for per diem conferences, it is very, very close to what the T4 amounts were for 2018. Give and take a little bit on each because everybody's different, like I said. So it's less than $5,000 difference on any of them. So I think it's pretty good. It's less than 5,000 difference for the T4 amounts versus going this way. So it's not, you wouldn't be gaining, you wouldn't be losing, of course, depending on how much you attend. But the remuneration part there would keep it in line. There's no budgeted increase or decrease as far as about as close as I could get it as a salary structure without, and being fair to everybody.
Tim?
What was broken?
What was broken?
To make it change from what it was to this.
What was broken with the way we were doing it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that anything was broken with it. We were asked to do a review. A lot of municipalities, like I mentioned in our meeting before, the larger municipalities, small rurals excluded, but larger municipalities like us and others do pay on a salary type structure with only per diems for out of town travel. So it kind of makes sense to go that way. And I don't know that it's broken, but per diems can lead to, you know, people attending more than other people and less than other people. And I'm not saying that that was here, I'm just.
But that's normal. If you're going to go to it, then you should get paid. If you're not, then you should. But anyway, like, the basic rate, when I was looking at it to begin with, was the fact that it should include the staff events, preparation of committees, independent work by residents, staff socials and that, meetings of functions of things such as Remembrance Day and Canada Day and all of that. And then there's, works, business, preparation for council time, with committees and stuff. And then, and then make whatever, do whatever with the basic, thing for each day, or the basic rate. And then just leave it that way.
So the basic rate is just a monthly rate. It's just it's an annual rate paid monthly, but it incorporates all of this. It doesn't matter if you go to 10 parades or 1 parade. It doesn't matter if you go to 14 council meetings or 12. The only thing you get paid extra for is conferences basically, or meetings held outside of the county. And everything else is covered under that basic rate.
Yeah, but the basic, it's considered, regular scheduled council meetings and that things, and internal and external meetings, informal meetings or CEO meetings, but CEO or whatever, council planning sessions or workshops, council in-house business, informal with other things. All those are meetings that we would have, or whenever we had them, we would have to be here. If we weren't here, we wouldn't get paid.
Mm-hmm. And all we're saying by listing those all under the basic rate just means that you cannot put in an additional claim for attending to any of these functions. You're being paid to do the daily activities required of council, which are basically what we've listed here, and you can't put in for anything extra for any of these.
Yeah, see, and that's
so whether it's
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and that's what this is getting at. So,
but what I'm saying that you would get a per diem if we would have to go to a meeting or whatever, just like it was before. If you went to a meeting with authorization and stuff, then you would have the per diem, and you would have your mileage. And when you got it, the time is included in the thing there. That's pretty hard to keep track. But I'm just wondering why it wasn't just removing the social events in the county councilors with recognition nights and stuff that was not basically business. It was for councilors for their parades and all that stuff, and that's which they would go should go to for free anyway. But I mean, you can't think of, but that's what I thought we were getting rid of and stuff. Just that little area there, because I'm not a big fan of having what's across the streets.
no, through to Councilor Benson. And I'm not saying that you're getting paid for these events here. You're not getting paid on a per meeting of these. You're getting paid for the day-to-day business functions. This is just saying that your pay includes those things. That you're still required to come to staff meetings and the socials and the barbecues and stuff like that. And this is excluding them from additional per diems, right? So, I mean, I guess you could look at it the other way too. You could keep the same structure that we have right now and write the policy to say you cannot claim for parades or staff meetings or blah, blah, blah. In effect, it would be kind of the same thing, but.
But if you didn't come, then you would get paid for it. But if you did, then you get paid.
Well, no.
Oh,
for a regular meeting, yes, not for a parade.
What we're doing right now, like today, we'll put in for whatever it is. But if this system, if I wasn't here, then I'd still get paid for it, right?
Yes.
Okay,
You all get paid the same amount, huh?
yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. That if you're going to be on council, then you should get paid to be at meetings, and if you're not there, you don't get paid.
I appreciate the comments, and I guess that's for you guys to debate. whether you do or not. I mean, it's kind of the same salary structure as you have, like with our staff with salaries. If they're sick, they still get paid. If they missed a day of work, they still get paid. It's just sick time. It's the same here. Everybody's paid the same. Now money isn't the focus anymore. Generally. But it takes money being out of the equation a little bit. It takes it out of as being a factor of whether you will attend or not attend something. At least the way I look at it, but I'll let you guys debate that.
Go ahead,
And this was just something that we reviewed, and the reason we looked at this structure is because there's consistency for council members, because, you know, say 1 month you attend 3 meetings, next month you attend 12. This would be a same base rate for everybody, and there'd be more clarity in it. It's also, we're not married to it, it's just one option, but it also is less work for staff to be implementing the timesheets as well too, and not as onerous for council members, because it's just the basic rate, unless you're out of town, and then you get per diems for out of county.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Like, if it's not making less work for us. It's making more work because if you're doing it bi-weekly or whatever, you gotta put in 2 sheets of paper anyway. You gotta put in the same amount of paper.
No paper. No paper. There's no paper, you don't have to put in.
Just for
per diem.
Calgary or Edmonton or something like that.
That's the only time I have to do it.
Okay.
No paper.
And I did rewrite, sorry, I did change it to monthly on here, and that was for direction from the last.
I think our 230 is here, so.
Okay, yeah, can table.
Yeah. Table.
Lay it on the table. Lay it on the table.
What do you mean lay it on the table? What is it?
I'm gonna lay it on the table. I'm just looking at Larry's at the right there.
Larry, you mean lay it on the table now?
Are you tired, Larry?
Snooze time for everyone. Lay on the table.
Lay it on the table.
He wants to lay it on the table.
I'll move that.
Thanks, Tracy.
Why not? Why not?
Ask Larry. It's the way the terminology is, lay on the table to deal with a matter of immediate urgency or, you know, something that needs to be addressed. So I would say it's the appropriate motion in this case.
Okay, I call the question, everybody in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we have a 2:30 appointment, and that's with Terrence from the Executive Director from Alberta Potato Growers of Alberta. So if you want to have a seat up there, we'll introduce ourselves and get started. Or do you need a- So I'm Marty Marie, and Council for Division 1.
Ann Mitchell, CAO.
I'm Klaus Vanderbeek, District 6 Councilor.
Bob Horvath, District 3 Horvath, Councilor.
Morris, East Coast.
Corey Campbell, Councilor Division 2. Hi, Steve Campbell, Councilor Division 5.
And Benson, Councilor.
Thank you. My name is Terrence Hochstein. I'm the Executive Director of the Potato Growers of Alberta, out of Taber. As well, I also have a ranch up in that Waterton Park area, so a little bit of diversification. So I'd start off today by thanking you for the invitation to come and address council. I had the opportunity to do this a few years ago, and there are some new faces around the table. Morris and Lauren have been here for a long time, and a few other ones, so they've probably heard a lot of this information.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And so what's your documents? I would like again say thank you. So what I've done here is I've just put a few slides together for you folks to take a look at. And then a lot of this is just based on your questions that I will answer and go from there. Everybody can read, so we'll go from there.
X out of that maybe in the top right there.
Yeah, your mouse is just put it back to mine. Right. We'll go here and so like I say, once again, thank you and for the opportunity. And this is kind of how we frame our industry. And you'll get into it a little bit farther here with the numbers. Is we call it a proud success story, Alberta success story. The organization was started in 1966 as a commission. We then went into a period of time as a marketing board, and we're now back to a commission status. One of the things that we did achieve this past year with Bill 43 and the refundable levies that the government a number of years ago in 2009 put into enactment, we did this past November through an order in council with the minister, go back to a non-refundable levy platform for our organization. So here's our mission statement, which we believe is it's ongoing. It's a living legacy, but it's ongoing. Progressive, member-driven organization focusing on the success and sustainability in Alberta's potato industry through leadership, engagement, collaboration, and communication. So one of the key points out of this is our vision and our drive to remaining sustainable as part of the agricultural industry. So we've got 160 members across the province. My farthest one north is out of Peace River that has fresh and seed up there. And the majority of the growers in the processing industry are around southern Alberta down here, as you know. Some in the county of Lethbridge, and that is growing. Envy of Tabor, Newell, Cypress, county of 40 Mile. And our seed is basically growing in that central Alberta region from Lacombe up into and around Edmonton. So what I've got here is our acreage since back to 2009. The green bars are what's a given. This is what I have in the province every single year. This is both seed, fresh, and processing. And as you can see over here, we remain pretty consistent over the years. This is all based on demand. And we run about 40,000 acres of processing, about 10,000 acres of seed, and the balance is fresh. So with the Cavendish expansion, which you all are well aware of, this coming year we're going to increase about 6,500 acres of contracted acreage. So that's where you see my numbers going up to 61.8. The following year, already know we're going to go up about another 3,500 acres. And I quite conceivably in the next 5 years see the industry in southern Alberta overall in the province hitting close to that 70,000 acre mark. Anytime you've got any questions, just stop and ask questions. So kind of a breakdown by the numbers by our industry. Alberta is number 3 in planted acres. We follow behind Prince Edward Island and Manitoba. I'm sure a lot of you had heard in ATV's newspaper, the Owl, and a few other publications that Alberta had surpassed Prince Edward Island there as being the #1 producer of potatoes in Canada this year. And I struggle with that because yes, we produced more tons this year, but that was because Prince Edward Island left about 8,000 acres in the ground, so they lost a pile of production, and Manitoba left about 4,000 acres in the ground. And for those of you that farm, you're well aware of what we had for the fall, and I maintain we were about 2 days and 1 degree away from having the same wreck as them. So yeah, this year we were #1 in production, but that wasn't fair. That wasn't the other side of the story being told. We do produce more acres, or more production per acre in any other area in Canada because of our irrigation. And right now we're running in that 420 hundredweight, about 21 ton per acre gross here in the province. Like I say, we had a great year of production. We produced over 1 million pounds, or 1 million ton, or 2.1 billion pounds of potatoes. So the numbers are big. They continue to grow. And that's the first time in history that we have gone over the 1 million ton number. Farm gate value in 2018 is about $250 million. A little better than 250, about 257 million is our farm gate value. Our economic value back to the province, over $1 billion. When you look at the factories, you look at the equipment, the input dealers, everything else, it doesn't take long to add up to $1 billion. So it is a big factor in this province as far as agriculture. 81% of the production in this province is processing, either fries or chips. 14% is seed, and 5% is fresh. Our fresh continues to grow. The Little Creamer Potatoes, Little Potato Company, continues to grow year over year in the province, adds more acres.
Further on, 80% of the production in the fry and chip industry here in Alberta goes to either the US or overseas. Just as an example, the Frito-Lay plant in Tabor have 5 farms that produce product for them. They service everything from the Ontario-Manitoba border west, some into Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, and that's out of that plant. That plant, 3 out of the last 5 years, has been Frito's #1 plant in North America for quality. So they're proud of that. One thing that I learned this week is this little Cavendish plant here in Lethbridge. They supply, as do every other plant, supply Wendy's, the QSR, the Wendy's Foods. They won the production out of that plant, won #1 of all Wendy's suppliers. So they did a very good job. That's a testament to the product that's grown here in Southern Alberta. They outdid Lamb, which is huge, Simplot, and McCain's. So they're pretty proud of that in an old plant that was built in the 60s. A large chunk of the business that backfeeds not into the US goes overseas into Japan and the Asian market. 50% of the seed sold out of Canada comes from Alberta producers here, about 20 million annually. A lot of that goes into the Columbia Basin. We have a huge market into Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. As well, this year, our numbers have increased quite a bit to Manitoba and Eastern Canada. We have a large chunk of seed that goes to Florida and California every year. So our seed here in the province is sought out. Excluding owner-operators, we have about 500 year-round employment on the farms, 1,500 seasonal workers, and over 1,000 employees employed in the plants, the Dehy plant in Vauxhall, as well as the fresh pack industries across the province. We've got a fresh pack in Vauxhall, one in Desano, a few in Edmonton. Thomas Fresh is based out of Calgary, so we feed into that market as well. But we do not produce enough here in the province. We produce about 40% of the needs of our fresh industry here in the province. The rest is basically coming out of Manitoba, out of feeding the market. The major players in the industry, excluding from the farms, McCain Foods employs about 215 people at their plant. Old Dutch in Calgary, that's another old plant that's been around a long time. They employ 100 people. Lamb Weston, east of Tabor, about 275 people. Cavendish Farm Plant, as it sits today, has about 175 people. With that new plant, a lot of people figured it would greatly increase the workforce. They're going to be right around that 200. A lot of the increase in that plant, even though it's 3 times bigger, is automation. For those of you that have been by that plant, on the far north end, there's the big steel tower going up in there. That is their freezer. That will be peopleless when it's finished. It'll all be computerized. So, I mean, right now, they're renting the VersaCoal plant where they exist, and the one on 43rd, they'll do that till that one's up and running. But there will not be basically nobody in that cooling facility. And PepsiCo and Tabor employs about 125 people. So collectively, between them and the Dehy, that's where we get about 1,000 people involved in the industry. So 2019 and beyond, what we see as an industry coming up. Additional, like I say, an additional 6,500 acres coming up this year. On paper right now for another 3,500 acres for crop year 2020. The majority of this is Cavendish, but there is some increase in acres for both McCain's and Lamb Weston. They continue to tweak things and demand more product. Beyond 2020, right now on paper, we're looking at about another 4,000 acres of potatoes. So you add these all up and we're looking at about 14,000 acres. And a lot of people, and I'm sure you folks in the room realize this, but a lot of people do not realize that not only does it take this, but it takes 3 times that much to be a part of our rotation. So when I have a conversation with the irrigation districts or government at various levels, we're really talking about another 56,000 acres of potato production over a period of a 4-year time. Our contracts dictate and we really strive to go 1 in 4 years for rotation. I have some growers that are 1-6, 1-7, 1-8, in that haze area on the new ground. So that's a lot of acres that are gonna be needed to produce this amount of potatoes. And we all know there's not gonna be any more water licenses allocated out of the South Saskatchewan River Basin. It's all gonna be based on efficiencies by the irrigation companies, by the growers to continue to expand this. Now, a lot of these acres have not seen potatoes now. We've got one farm that's coming on in the Wyland area this year with another one of our existing growers. There's 80 quarters there of irrigation ground that's never seen potatoes. So they'll now be a part of that rotation. So the ground is there. BRID has added some new ground, allocated some new ground. So it's existing farmland that have water on it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Lauren.
So, I've heard a lot of people ask me this question. Like, what kind of land is the best suited for potatoes? And, like, does the heavier clay soils, like where I live, are they suitable for potatoes, or what? How does it work? Or?
The ideal ground is a sandy loam, out where you are, and I'm familiar where you're at. Not as much, it can be done. A lot of the European soil is like that. So you basically, right now, you've got a line from Coaldale north and Chanturn and east. But we are seeing now, there's some stuff south of Coaldale, a little bit west. We're getting some into that Pitcher Butte country, into the feedlot, what I call feedlot alley and stuff. It's doable. It's just you gotta manage it a little bit differently. You gotta be really patient with the soil. The soil in the south of Grassy Lake is that way too. And there are some clay pockets in there. But the ideal is a sandy clay loam.
Okay, thank you.
So other than that, this is what happened last fall. That was a very expensive piece of equipment that took 3 days to get out of the mud. But we did get it out with minor damage. That's brand new. It's been in the field for 2 days. Does that look like $1.2 million? But a few high hose and quite a few hours on a shovel laying on your back, you got it out. But thank you for the opportunity. Any questions you got, fire away.
Variety of potatoes now, is the matter somewhere the sandy to the heavy clays? Does that make
Unfortunately, and I openly say this, unfortunately, our processing industry is still married to the Russell Burbank. When you talk sustainability, when you talk, moving toward the future, less water, less air, less fertilizer and chemical, that's the worst potato in the world to grow. But our problem that we're facing, and it's slow, it's coming. I mean, I've worked for these folks for 10 years now, and I'm starting to see some changes, is our end driver, the person that determines it, is McDonald's. And in turn, you as a consumer, you want that white product. No place else in the world has it, but North America still is hung up on that. But we have, in the last 5 years, Cavendish Farms has got a couple of new varieties that's been accepted by McDonald's. Lamb Weston does, as does McCain's. So the tide is shifting. They use less water, they use less chemical, they produce more per acre. So it's slow, but not as fast as we'd like. The rest of Burbank has been around for 80 years.
Because we used to grow 50 acres in the heaviest clay soil we had, but that was way in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, and it works. It does work in the clay soil. But it's how you handle it.
Yeah.
You get more bruising. You can, on a wet year, get more rot.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not doable. What you're going to see as our industry expands, we're going to get more into those clay soils. Your area, Lauren, you're going to see some potatoes up in there. Ken?
The Bulls Research Station, they doing up their ag services. Those varieties that they're producing, how long does it take to actually put that into production?
A new variety?
Yeah.
You're pushing close to 10 years. And the reason why I say that is Ag Canada has a breeding program, and there's some private breeding programs in Canada now. So they're playing with that through their selection probably 3, 4, 5 years. And then by the time that gets into the hand of a seed grower, until it actually hits the field to be planted here commercially, you're looking at it probably another 6 years. As you bring your generations up.
GMO, did we have the?
Absolutely have none in this province. Will there be someday? Yes. Depending on how, I guess I'll ask you, okay, how do you define GMO?
Genetically, it's modified.
Okay, but from within or added genes? Where I'm going with this is the potato industry right now has called what's called an innate variety, Simplots. That is CRISPR technology, cisgenics. So what that is gene suppression. So they're not adding anything, they're just suppressing the late blight gene, they're suppressing the darkening or bruising gene. So they haven't taken.
I think you have to add genes, is what I'm thinking.
Exactly, and that's the misconception of it. So they're silencing genes, and me personally, I think that's a good thing. We're gonna get away a lot less chemical, fertilizer, et cetera, but McDonald's hasn't bought into it yet. A couple of years ago, we had the lead scientist from Simplot in a panel with the head buyer from McDonald's. And he framed it in front of 1,800 people as, when I have my McDonald's hat on, I can't touch it. We don't want it, we will never touch it. When I have my science farmer hat on, he says, we gotta go there, because it meets all of the criteria of what we're trying to do in the world of food. But to date, no, we have a policy within our organization dictated by our processors that as a seed grower, if you do entering into that, you no longer produce seed for the processing. And that's within our organization.
Thank you.
Yes.
Besides some seed potatoes being exported out of Alberta, is everything basically processed in Alberta, all the tons?
No, not always, and I'll use this year as an example. We strive very much to only produce what we need. Don't have a complete control over all of my growers, and they sometimes do produce opens. So as an example, this year we had one of our best years last year. Even as late as it was, we had one of our best years. We had about 1.5 million bags, 100-pound bags of extra. And that's all gone. That went to PEI to fill their wreck in Manitoba. But in the case of PEI, not only are we filling them, they're bringing 400,000 bags out of Idaho. They're bringing it up here to Alberta under CFIA regulations, and they're transloading it and putting it on a train to go to PEI. But normally we keep it all in here, but not always.
Rather than trucking it or shipping it, so
Yeah.
keep those costs.
Well, and our plants can only produce and handle so much. So those 3 plants right now are running to capacity, above capacity.
Bob? Bob? Thank you. Yeah, the question that I had for you actually is the rotation that is going on. I mean, a lot of it's 3 years yet.
No,
4 years.
There are some 1 and 3. I would not be honest if I told you they weren't. We're striving for a 1 and 4. Our contracts are saying a minimum 1 and 3, prefer 1 and 4. So they don't want anything less. Even with the expansion, that was one of our agreements with Cavendish Farms was, you come, we'll make this work, but do not expect your grower base in southern Alberta to shorten that rotation. And they see that. They see the wreck that they're having on the East Coast.
So what is the reason for some of the areas that you were talking about going to 6, 7 years?
Because they can right now. You get into that Cadiz country, east of Vauxhall, up into Tilly. There hasn't been a lot of potatoes traditionally in there, rolling hills. So is it gonna stay at 1 and 6 and 7? No. If they could, they would. Way less disease, way better yields. But I think we're gonna lose that 6 and 7 and 8 down to 5. Growers that are there right now are adamant about maintaining a minimum 1 and 5. So it's disease and rotation.
So,
does that answer your question, Bob?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So when you get paid for it, are you working on the starch or like the sugar beet boys work on sugar content? And you guys got any
special thing, or you work on tonnage?
We are paid on tonnage, we are paid a base price plus bonuses, based on quality, size, gravity, et cetera, et cetera. The three contracts, we have what's called a favored nations clause within the three processing contracts here in Alberta, Lamb, McCain, and Cavendish Farms. So the bottom line of that contract has to be the same, X number of dollars per ton. How they get there is, each plan is different, you know, base plus bonus, but there's a base rate and then a bonus structure on each.
Morris. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lauren and me, we visited a few times at Potato Grower up in the favorite areas up there, and the emphasis they put on nowadays, and I remember, you know, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, when sugar beet something, it's a good area. And for what they do now on the quality end and the contamination end of it, it's unbelievable how cautious they are to make sure that they meet all of that, because we were even at the McCain's processing plant, and we're very scared of social media. But if you did something in your operation, or even at McCain's down there, if social media gets hold of them, it can do a lot of damage in the industry, and that's what Lauren and me found out, you know, how they watch out for that, and that's good.
We live under the consumer's eye, social media all of the time. Every one of my growers follow Canada Gap on farm food safety program. There is no room for error there. If you don't meet the standards, you don't supply the plants, and in turn, the plants are under that same thing. And we also have what's called a potato sustainability initiative that's driven by Cisco and McDonald's and Walmart. So their consumers, which all of us are in this room, have a certain expectation and demand. So they expect the suppliers here to be a part of it. I mean, McDonald's has the sustainable beef program. As a producer, I'm part of that, and I got some protocols on it.
But it's quite a change from, let's say.
Oh, absolutely it is. We are constantly, by media, you know, the comments of, well, potatoes use all of the water. Well, per ton of production, no, we don't. We use a minimal amount, and a lot of that is returned. But I mean, you folks all know that. You're all.
Any other, Dory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just start, thank you for coming in today. I was fortunate enough to grow up next to a potato farm. Got to work on one when I was a kid, and got to do some work with potatoes when I was going through university. So always found the industry really, really fascinating, and I think you're very fortunate. Some of the growers that you have are some of the most progressive and on the cutting edge producers that we have in our province, I think, and it's a big credit to your industry. I think you might have touched on it a bit, but just a couple of questions, I guess. Maybe one, just other than the obvious constraints of the land base we have, maybe some challenges that you see going forward with the industry, and also with that, maybe just from our side of things, on the municipality side, I know with the Cavendish expansion, we've heard concerns over potatoes moving into, like you said, non-traditional potato growing areas, and I think there's just a little bit of trepidation because people really aren't familiar with how the production happens, and maybe you could just speak to I think what maybe there's a misconception about production, I guess. And by that I mean, I think people think that there'll be potato trucks running up and down the road every day if there's a quarter section of potatoes down the road, but there's a vast majority of these potatoes are going to go into established storages, and the amount of field run that you guys actually do is, I've been led to believe that it's a smaller percentage. Maybe could you just speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes, it's like silage season. It's like sugar beet season. There's going to be a period of time where those trucks at 15 or 22 tons at a time are going to go up and down the road. Very small percentage is field run. So when I say small percentage, those plants ideally will start up by 25th of August on new crop, and they'll run to about maybe 30 days of field run, and everything else is going into storage. And then over the course of the next, what I say 13 months, because we have growers that are bringing new stuff in one end and still hauling old stuff out, it's distributed on an as-needed basis to these plants. Is the traffic with the new Cavendish plant going to increase coming into this plant into Lethbridge? Absolutely it is. That plant right now is producing about 2.3 million hundredweight. The new plant is built to produce 6 million hundredweight. So you do the math there. And knowing Mr. Irving as well as I do, he doesn't build just to what the paper says. His long-term goal is to have that plant capable of producing 8 million. So, you know, we're looking, it's not 3 or 4 times as much, but it's a 3.5x as much of what production is going into this plant now. So yes, that's where the extra acres are going to come. And so there will be more truck traffic. One of the things that our growers are getting more and more conscious of, and there's some things that come on here, is rather than the tandems up and down the road going to the wide bottom semis. But we now have it, which we needed, but we now have a situation where we have to wade through with the new MEL program and the Class 1 driving, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to take an adjustment period of time. But the efficiencies, as you said, they're leading edge. The efficiencies, the less trips they have to make to move the potatoes, the better they are aware of. Our growers are very conscious of the roads that we have in all our counties and MDs. They need them. They don't want them wrecked. Because basically, those plants operate 24/7, 365, as you're very well aware. There has to be trucks coming and going every day, either finished raw product in or finished product out or waste or whatever it may be. So they're very well aware of that. But I guess I would say to you, if you are in a situation where you have meetings or district meetings or with your constituents and stuff, and those questions are coming up on a consistent basis, reach out to me. I have no problem sitting down with a group of producers and landowners and having those, answering their questions. That's my job. I enjoy it. I got nothing to hide. I'll answer every question as truthful as I can. Did that answer all your questions?
Yeah. Just maybe on the challenges that you see?
Our challenge is a labor challenge. We're gonna have a labor challenge. Our cost of irrigation power, many of you that have pivots at home, you well aware, January 1st, the irrigation rate power went up 9.7%. So we're gonna pay more again this year. Your farmyard went down 3%, but your irrigation power went up 9%. So that is a challenge. Our continued, everything that we buy, our equipment, our steel, everything, it's all based on US dollars. This is everybody that has a farm. But you're looking at these new storages that are going up, and I'm sure you've all seen them. We're talking multi-million dollars investment. So that's a challenge.
Any other questions?
Maybe I'll have one.
No, that's good. I'm glad.
You were talking about most of your fresh potatoes are coming out of Manitoba.
Yeah.
And well, you're exporting about 80% of your potatoes.
Our frozen product, yeah.
So is the ability to grow more fresh potatoes not here in Alberta, or is it more the smaller guys that are doing it?
No, at one time, for those of you that have been here for a long time in southern Alberta, that's what drove this industry. We were in that 10, 12, 15,000 acre range of fresh. That's what the potato producers of Alberta were doing. 99 when Lamb come, 2000 with McCain's, and then Cavendish expansion. It's more lucrative. I wouldn't say more lucrative, it's more consistent because it's a contract to grow a processing potato, if you can get a contract. The fresh market is supply and demand, so it's up and down and up and down. That is a concern of the fresh industry right now, is they're giving out more processing contracts. Other than a little potato company, we're gonna go backwards again. We don't grow, because our better ground is growing the processed potatoes right now. So our fresh guys are pushed out a little bit, what I call to the edges. So we don't grow a really good fresh potato here anymore. And it's logistically, and it makes a whole lot more sense to work with Peak at the Market out of Manitoba, because they grow a lot of fresh, and have them supply our cold pack with our pack houses than it does to go elsewhere. At one time, they were bringing up a lot out of the US, and they'd sooner, you know, as far as we're concerned, Western Canada is still local.
Anything else? Well, I think it's very informative, but it's going to be interesting times moving forward, because it'll be a huge change, the addition of 10,000, 14,000, and probably another 17 or 18,000 acres down the road. So it's definitely great for agriculture.
I have a question for you, folks. As a county councilor, as a level of government, do you have concerns with what's going on, or do you see roadblocks or hiccups?
Well,
2 and 3 and 5 years down the road.
Yeah, we do have a few, and that would be our infrastructure. It's kind of, how are people gonna get to the new Cavendish plant? Like, is it gonna be down Highway 3 and up 43rd, or is it gonna be on the old Coaldale Road, say, and into to Cavendish that way, or like it's gonna definitely have an impact on our infrastructure some way or another. And that's one of the biggest things we do hear about is, you know, you haul the potatoes from the field to the storage facility, and then you haul it out of the storage facility to the plant. So it's kind of like a double wear and tear on the road, on the infrastructure. So, I mean, it's not necessarily always, because it's obviously different routes, but that is one concern that is mentioned.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, and we all know, there's only one 43rd Street.
Yeah.
How you get to that is, you know, like the two you mentioned, or coming up the Broxburn Road and then west on Range Road, or Township Road 92. I mean, they still all gonna end up at one road.
So that is an issue for us.
Yeah. So what's the solution?
Well, we don't know, because it depends on the volume of traffic, I guess. Like, do those roads have to be widened, or do they have to be paved, or what are we gonna have to be looking at down the road to keep it, you know, a balance between everything? We haven't touched that yet.
Yeah.
The,
Because that is a concern, or I would say, that's a forward-thinking question the growers have. You know, we all gotta go there. I mean, we're hauling a little bit right to the middle of Lethbridge right now, and that's a nightmare getting in there. Into Richardson's and there and everything else, and now we're making something that's 3 times as bigger, but we still gotta come up that same road to get here.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. You know, of course, you know, that is gonna be probably a bigger load on our infrastructure, whatever is happening. However, we certainly welcome, you know, the additional industry coming to our county here. But we lobby on a yearly basis, the province and federally. Hey, we have a great industry. They recognize that we have a great industry in the county of Lethbridge, I'll just say. And that is on the agriculture side of it, that's on the cattle end of it down there, you know, and they really, put a lot of emphasis on that. We have that great industry, but we trying to tell them all the time, you guys recognize that, but we need a little bit of help with the infrastructure, and it's absolutely not coming, and that's where I think the potato growers have been doing that, lobbying for that. Hey, we do need the extra money for the infrastructure, and hopefully we should carry that on.
That is part of my job, is to get the government to realize that, you know, you say you're a part of this expansion in industry, but a part of saying that is you have to put some money back into the local areas to make this work.
Just what percentage of the potatoes that are stored in the storage facilities that are gonna feed Cavendish come from the county versus Taber, Tabor, or Vauxhall, up in that area?
Right now, the percentage of actual production in the county of Lethbridge is very small, and because basically there's very little growing west of that Coaldale Pittsburgh Highway. Now that's changing. I know I've got more acres coming in west this year, there are some there. But that's just because there's, for whatever reason, there's a definitive change in ground in that area. But the biggest per county right now is the Indian Tabor. And then county 40 Mile, Newell, and then Cypress, in that way. But that's gonna change.
And a lot of those potatoes are stored in the vicinity here to feed these plants, correct? Or are they stored there? And
No, I think the longest haul of any of my growers right now, from field to storage, would be 20 miles, 25 miles. So it's not that bad. But they still gotta come, you know, they're either coming in here or McCain's or going east to Lamb West. Or to Calgary or to Freedom.
So one other thing that I kind of thought about was the quantities of wastewater they're producing, or that they're irrigating off some of the places now, and the amount of fresh water they're taking in. Is there kind of could be some changes moving forward, like in the amount of water you're going to be required to use to get the potatoes to a point where they're usable? Like, I mean, when you walk to the factory or you de-hide them, or is there
It's
any
all
change?
recycled water. I mean, it's, in any stage of the production, it's always recycled in one form or another. I mean, that water that's going through, the wastewater that's going through the plants, I mean, it goes through their treatment plant, it's being used in a different stage. Eventually, yeah, it goes back out onto a field through irrigation water. But they're constant, I know the plants, in discussion and looking at the plans of this Cavendish plant, their per unit of production, use of water will be way less there than this little plant over here. So, and I know McCain's is doing some upgrades, they're constantly doing upgrades on that, as the growers are with more efficient pumps and sprinklers, et cetera, et cetera. So, yes, there's an asserted effort over a period of time to use less water per unit of production.
Yep. And I've got a follow-up question on that one, the wastewater. Where you use, where you end up with the wastewater sprinkling on the field, can you grow potatoes on those fields? Probably not.
Yep.
Well, you can.
Yep. So when are they taking, there is a dilution factor. So I'll use McCain's as an example. Potatoes have starches, there's salt, natural salts, everything else in there. So that water that comes out of their plant after it's been used multiple times goes through their wastewater treatment plant, pull the solids and stuff off, the manure part of it, what I call it. Then it goes into that big holding pond north of their plant. Then, based on agronomic decisions, a percentage of that water is mixed in with our regular irrigation water, and it's pumped onto farmland. So there is ground. I mean, over a period of time, is that going to drive the salinity level up on a piece of ground? Past experiences say yes, it has happened, not only in this area, but other areas of the world and in Canada. So they're very conscious of that. So as a dilution factor, let's say it's 4 parts raw water and 1 part of this water, that number is going up to 6. And I mean, we're constantly, between them and the Alberta Environment and their agronomists are constantly taking that. They're needing more acres to dispose of that water because they're using less amount of it at a period of time. But yeah, you can go back in. The only place you can't go back into with potato production is if at any point in time there's any human waste from a water treatment plant, or a sewage treatment plant. Then it's zero. Never to happen again.
Okay, good. Any more questions? Well, Tom, thanks very much for taking the time to come in today and go over this with us, Terrence.
I enjoy it. Thank you. Anytime.
Okay.
If you've got some concerns and questions, pick up the phone.
Okay, thank you. Great. We need a motion on the presentation.
No.
End the discussion.
Thank you.
opposed? Oh, thank you.
I'll make that one.
I don't even know where it is. All in favor?
Right, bottom,
Carried.
J1.
No, he meant on the table.
On this little list, it's
Right
so
here.
confusing. There we go.
So if I could just kind of refresh where we were at, we just, I don't know.
How do you quite put that? You lay it off the table after you've laid it on, or what's the wording?
Take it out. Mr. Chairman, I think the proper terminology is to lift from the table.
Lift it. Don't even try to lift
Yeah, we're gonna lift it. Hey, sorry, Gracie.
Not after that one.
Show us how to do that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to refresh, that the committee did meet a bunch of times, and we did meet once with council as a whole, with direction to bring forth this salary structure as I presented it today. That's where we are right now.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
I guess on page 89, 8.2, expenses relating to home office will not be reimbursed. So what precisely do you mean there?
Wait, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did borrow that from another municipality. A couple of municipalities had that in their policy. My guess is just maybe that in the past, probably somebody has tried to put in for home office expenses, whether it's the purchase of a desk or something like that. So it's just in there just to say that, you know, we don't
buy it.
we won't reimburse you for home office expenses. We never have, and we've never had an issue. Like I said, it was just borrowed from another policy.
And I think some municipalities too have had issues with, or they had a little stipend to pay for paper or printing cartridges at home, so that was.
And we do have a technology policy and that remains unchanged. Excuse me, I think it's $50 a month to provide a laptop.
No, that, yeah, so that, I think everybody has a county printer.
Yeah.
So-
No.
No? No?
Well, they're a whopping $35, so if you haven't gotten a printer.
So,
It's cheaper to buy a new printer than ink.
oh, it is.
It is true. There's the technology policy, you all get $50 per month for a technology allowance, and I think that's to cover the cost of paper and stuff for it. I don't have the policy. Is it a cell phone? Okay. I don't have that policy in front of me, sorry. It used to be for printers, but.
And the option is always to, if you needed something large printed up, we would always do that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or no, even bigger paper.
Figures.
Well, I think if you're doing like 20 or 30 sheets of paper, maybe it's better to do it a year, because, yeah. So, my next question is on the same page, and that's the extended absence. And I know this is kind of one area I have had concerns about, but, you didn't really address the issue if you had a medical issue, like say if you were in an accident, if, as a result of being on a county business, you know, how do you roll that in, and or does our insurance take care of that? Or-
So, thank you for the question. I didn't put anything in there about that. I did find some of the larger municipalities do, Edmonton currently or previously had a counselor on an extended absence that they dealt with as a one-off. I think they created a bylaw to even cover that, but, so I did put unless otherwise approved by council, so my thoughts there were if it were some kind of extenuating circumstance, it would come before council to be dealt with as a whole. This clause as is written here is just probably they're just on vacation and don't show up for a month or something like that, or but an extenuating circumstance, I would think you would bring before council, and there'd just be too much to cover there. Our insurance doesn't cover salaries if you're ill. It'll cover it'll cover your benefits while you're away, or your out of travel expenses and whatnot, but it doesn't reimburse your salary if you're off.
So how does that work with staff then? So if you're gone for X number of days, you still get paid?
Staff.
And then you go on short term, or you want this, I don't know how it works, so.
It's a little different versus non-union versus union, they're a little bit different. The county does self-fund short-term insurance,
Yes.
so up to, it depends, like 90 days or 6 months. After that, you would go on to long-term disability insurance, which I'm pretty sure is not extended to council, right?
I don't think it is.
No, it's not. And it's because they're not full-time positions.
So my only reason for asking that question, like if you were in a disability, an accident where you were disabled from, that was the only reason I asked that question. So,
And I think if we had a counselor that was injured or, even chronically ill, I think that's something we would bring forward. Council is like, if you want to approve this, do we extend it, do we take 6 months? Because also in doing that, depending on how close you are to an election, you have to make the decision of when you need to run a by-election too. So something extenuating like that, we would bring forward to council. I think to deal with it in this policy, just be kind of a little bit onerous. And plus the MGA provides for some of that in the longer term illnesses, even with the absences of 2 or more council meetings within the 8 weeks. I didn't put that in here because the MGA deals with that and that would trump our policy anyways.
Is it provided for at all in the procedural bylaw too? Do you know that, Larry?
I think so.
With absences of council, I'm just curious.
I don't think we've addressed it in there, but
unfortunately, I wouldn't really rely upon what's in the MGA. And I'll tell you why, because there's been several cases gone to court, and the judges overturned what Alberta Municipal Affairs did. So they reinstated people, or they don't follow the letter.
Same with paternity leave. I didn't include anything in here as there isn't legislation for it yet. Some large municipalities have dealt with it through a bylaw. We don't foresee anything coming up in the near future, so unless something mandates us to put in there, we would just maybe deal with it, Morris all of a sudden decides to go on paternity leave here, we'll just bring it forward to council and see.
He's not listening.
I know, he's not. That's why I picked
Going
on
on
him.
paternity leave for it?
You benefit, you benefit.
So, and then my other questions were on page 86, and 5.1.3, and informal and formal meetings with CEO and staff and council.
Yes.
So, I'm not, that's supposed to be covered under that. So I guess when you get up to, if you're a lot of that, how do you kind of average it out? Like, say for some reason you had 10 meetings in a month, you were only supposed to have 4. Like, when you go over a certain number, like.
Yeah, so I think maybe there, clause 11 would be the exceptions. And if you guys, as a whole, decided that, hey, look, we have had, we had to do a CAO executive search, we've had 20 meetings with a headhunter. Doing this, I think we should all put in for that, and that you all agreed to. That's where I think maybe it would fall under there, under the exceptions to your policy. Section 11, that says exceptions to this policy can be made by majority vote of council. So if you guys said, like we've had 50 staff meetings because Anne's holding our feet to the fire over this one issue here, and I don't think that's fair, we're not really getting compensated. You guys could, as a group, collectively decide that you want to put in for 5 meetings each or something.
So then my next one's just one more, 3 down, 5.1.6, and that's to direct people to go to staff events such as municipal services, spring safety breakfast, rodeo, and stuff like that. I'm kind of wondering if you could redirect people to go to, like, say, the safety breakfast or the, or social events.
I don't think it's to direct them, it's just saying that it's covered under the base.
And you can't claim separately for them, yeah.
Well, see, I read it as slightly different. I read it as that's something you need to attend.
No, it's just something that's covered under the basic rate, so if you chose to go to those things, then you wouldn't be able to put in separate.
Yeah, that's all, I was trying to cover things there that
Okay.
shouldn't be claimed as a per diem. And basically with that, the last change saying now that per diems only cover out of county travel, that basically, it just negates everything within the county anyways, so.
So maybe it was wrong, I read the wrong one, it should have been 5.1.13, and that's staff social functions such as employee recognition, annual holiday.
Yeah.
Or that's the one I'm more, I guess, concerned over.
Which one was it? 5.1.
No, but you're almost directing people to go to it.
No.
Well, that's what it sounds like.
Okay, the intent isn't though, the intent is just that it's one of the things that's happening.
I mean, we could split that into two. We could split 5 into two kind of sections and say, part A of the section is like work that you are required and should attend if at all possible. And then the second stuff is B, like attendance should be made, but maybe not mandatory, like parades, community events, social functions, staff functions. I could split that into two if that makes it a little clearer, if you'd rather see more mandatory attendance to some and non-mandatory to others.
We do have a conscience, and we're not kids, so we should know what we're expected to go see and do.
Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do like how it clears things up and makes it a little more simpler to know what we should or should not be paid for. Maybe the only concern is the external committees. I mean, it's easy to police and know that we're all going to attending the internal committees. I guess what's to say someone just doesn't show up with their external committees and still getting paid for. And again, I guess the rest of us wouldn't know, or I don't know, unless the organization would notify us.
No, it's a very fair question. I think with our committee review in October that we did, that would help balance the workload a little bit like we did there for policing, and maybe Ann has some questions. She's watching you all the time.
I think too, the fact, Councillor Campbell, that we do have the council reports, and we are kind of expecting those councillors that come back, like Councillor Van der Veen's on SEWA, and we've asked for updated reports and that kind of thing, so there is that check-in, and we would hope that those councillors do, you know, if they can't go, let us know, and send an alternate, especially if it's something crucially important. The other thing is too, there's per diems for some of the outside boards, so if the members aren't going, we would be notified, or, right?
So those per diems that you get from the outside, do we give back to you guys yet?
Yes, Tracy's got an answer for that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
I did send this out for discussion, and I did forget to put that in here, is that because you are being paid by the county to attend the committee meetings, if you do receive a per diem, it should come to the county. So the regional waste, the regional water commissions, I think one that Ken sits on, Green Acres, those all pay per diem, so those should come back to the county and not to the individual, if we go with this new format, because you're being paid to attend those meetings. SEWA, I think, pays a per diem now, do they? No? Okay.
But no, I mean,
Yes.
I'm a little confused over that one down there, because I was on orders and I got paid by orders, but I never put in at the county into it. So how does that work?
That's the way it should-
Like I
that's the way
give
it
it
should
back
be.
to you and
Yeah.
Salaries, those are,
But now it's been factored into the salary
how did you factor it?
by knowing how many meetings are held per year by that committee review that
well,
we did in
orders have
October.
sometimes two a month.
The town of Coaldale, for example, they sit on our water commission board, and all the per diems for those two councillors to attend, we pay to the town of Coaldale. They don't see those per diems separately, because the town pays them. Pardon me?
We get enforcement from, like I get enforcement.
But not if you have it changed to the county's name, you wouldn't.
They want.
We would pay it directly to the county.
And I should have added that section in here, and I didn't touch that.
Any other questions?
Chairman. I've been in favor of this since we started this discussion a while back now. I think it creates predictability. I think it creates equality amongst councillors. I think it plays into having a greater control over our budget as a council. Historically, we haven't been able to tackle that very effectively in my time here. So I think it leads to a better ability to budget. And I think it gives in a greater level of transparency, in my opinion. I think that it's known what's expected of us. It's known how we're being compensated. It takes some of that gray out of it, depending on committee work. And I think at the same time, it puts a greater onus on us as a council. We have to hold each other accountable. The REIT has to hold us accountable, and we have to hold each other accountable. That's the only way it's going to work, I think. And I think, as Bob alluded to, I know that being here for going on almost 2 years now, I think that the expectation for me personally was a little bit unclear at the beginning, just because of the nature of how we were compensated and the committee work. And I think that this would relieve some of that burden for a new councillor, and like I say, just that predictability. So I'd be in favor.
Again?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Troy. But when you're filling out your per diem, you're filling it out yourself. You're putting in where you guys were, how long it took, your mileage and everything, and you're signing it at the bottom. Now, if there's something wrong in there, then you've got a copy saying, well, this is what you put in there, and you got paid for it, and you signed it. That's probably the best way to keep track of what's going on.
We also have the monthly council reports up here. Those aren't going to stop, right? So you're still going to have to list all the meetings that you attend during the month. So that's kind of one way. Like, I know you had mentioned who's going to know if you went to those meetings. Well, you will be reported on your report. So your constituents will be watching, and other councils.
So that's what I'm getting at. How did that get on the report?
Well, right now Lorraine pulls it from your timesheets, but I guess it'd be on you to pull it from
And you
your.
sign that. And if you sign it and you weren't there, then you got a copy. So that's the best way to find out what's going on.
But she does pull those from your timesheets, which I imagine you write from your calendars or whatever else. But the way going forward for this, there actually would be very little paperwork for councillors, because every out-of-town trip would be treated like an expense claim, which Lorraine does up for you all, I believe. So all you have to do is sign them, and we have revised that form a little bit so that it includes per diems and mileage on that form. So it'd be one expense claim form, and it will go from Lorraine to you to payroll.
So do you run that by me once more again about how this now, if you went to the system, would get to the fact that you make the councilor's report? Because somebody's gonna have to put it in the system.
It won't. It would be you guys doing up a monthly report to Lorraine, or Lorraine knowing where you're at all the time, and her compiling a report to council. Because we won't have the timesheets, right?
But that will be the timesheet, if you're putting it in the end of the month.
So then how are you gonna allocate, if you go to Edmonton, or you go to Calgary, you go to wherever you went?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know what I mean? It's confusing that way too.
Well, if you like for this last conference you were just at, RMA, Lorraine will do up an expense claim thing. It'll go through payroll, you'll get your per diems, your mileage, and your whatever meals you claim on there. Hotel and all that will be reimbursed, just like it is now. And then your monthly pay would just be processed like a monthly pay run.
But you're still gonna have to do that to give it to her.
I don't think it's gonna be a challenge. I've gone through salary before, like the salary type, and because the executive assistant does all the booking for council, then she tracks where you guys are at, right? So if she's booking hotels for the planning conference, she knows in April from this date to this date you're at the planning conference. Doesn't need a time
Have
sheet.
to write
It
it
doesn't
down.
need a time sheet for track.
Oh, but when you come back with your hotel sheet, you gotta sign that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but she would still fill
and
it
that's
out.
what I'm getting, it's, you're signing that that's where you were at.
Yep.
And it's there.
Yeah, the only thing is, because I think if we give a council reports, it has to be on there, so then we'll just have to do it ourselves, or we wait on, because we don't have to put all the ones, the internal ones on that sheet anymore, because.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And we can, I mean,
Well,
we
who's
can.
gonna
put
do
it on.
it? This is confusing.
Yeah, because we can put it on there if you want that, but you just don't put your day on there.
I don't really think it's confusing. There's no need.
That's your opinion, yeah.
Yeah, it's change, I realize that, but there's no need to fill out a monthly form because you're getting a salary. So it's like, you don't have to say, I went to this meeting, I went to that meeting, I went to that meeting, because everything's covered through the salary, so.
But when we go to read it out.
But yeah, just,
Yeah.
yeah,
You still have
someone
to
else still need to
Yeah.
track
Say,
it for your
we've
monthly
been at this
report.
company,
You need to
because
track,
they
either
don't know.
council can track it themselves or Lorraine can track it.
Yeah, because they don't know where we've been at council meeting here.
No, you're right, so yeah, it'll have to be tracked somewhere.
I gotta sign the sheet.
You just won't have to write down a half day, a full day, mileage, blah, 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 you won't have to write down all of that, you just have to write down the date and then track it somewhere where you were that month.
Yeah.
I think most of you use a paper calendar of some sort, don't you? I know Ken does. But yeah, you're right, there still would be some tracking required.
Somebody's gonna have to do it if you want a monthly report. That's my point, I guess.
And that's the same thing.
That would go.
You fill it out and
So if we have a new system, we would let the regional waste know that it comes directly to the county instead. That's all.
Is that a regional waste Purdue?
Yeah.
So that goes back to the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess there's an advantage there, because if we work for the county, we get paid more, but now it's gonna be included in that.
It's not factored in,
salary.
yeah.
It's not included, it's got base.
Which is
Which
factored
Which is
in.
factored in.
So, but everybody's wages were lumped together to arrive at these numbers, right?
It was averaged, yes.
So, say like last year, Tori had way more committees than anybody else. So under this system, he kind of would have got screwed over because he wouldn't have got paid as well. So, I mean, it's fine as long as everybody's kind of even. Like if we did one or two, I guess. If you're more so out of that, you're kind of at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so there were two counselors that it worked out to be a slight disadvantage over last year, Tory being one of them. But he has reduced the number of committees that he sits on this year, so that should probably work itself out this year. Most of the counselors, that overall average too was less than, the overall amount was less than $2,000 as a group, that this new system versus what your T4s collectively added up to. It's very, very close.
So what do you think we're gonna average a year now?
It's right in here.
28,000. That's.
Plus your out-of-town
Oh,
travel.
sure.
So the way I factored it was if you attended the same stuff you attended last year out of town, plus this salary, your T4 should be very, very close to the same for 2019 as it was to 2018. If you attend more out-of-town stuff, it'll be higher. If you attend less, it'll be lower. And that would have been regardless.
That
So,
would have been regardless.
that's how I factored it, but yeah, you're right, if there's somebody who does get stuck with more committees, I mean, and that's where it's important during the organizational meeting to make sure that everybody's kind of signing up for the same kind of number of meetings, which we tried to get to last year to say, that's why we did that review and found out, you know, some committees meet monthly, some only meet twice a year. So we tried to balance it out that way, and I think that's how Tori ended up dumping a bunch of his last year, but that's why it becomes really important at the org meeting to make sure that you're signing up for ones that are keeping it even with everybody.
Yeah, but on the same hand, if you have an imbalance, the whole system is more compensating to you than the person who doesn't have as many.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's advantages both ways. Go ahead, Boss.
Yeah, I'm quite fine to stay with the per diem system if you guys want.
And the other one too, I'm not totally against this or anything like that. Like, to be fair to everybody, some councilors have more time to be on more committees than other ones, for example, right? So I mean, you would not have the fairness that you do with the old system.
In my past experience with the salary system, one counselor just didn't have time because he worked full time and the rest of them were retired or semi-retired. So he got the benefit because he was getting the same salary as everybody else, so. 6 months. What? No? What do you mean?
If you go to someplace, put it out.
Oh, no, I'm just saying my past experience, he was getting a benefit because he didn't go to as much salary. He was still getting the same salary.
But Joe,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Except you got a lot longer.
Any further discussion? Do you have enough, Tracy?
I can just add to it that it really honestly doesn't matter to us either way. We did recommend a salary structure just for its simplistic format and just makes it a little bit fairer, especially to a newer counselor coming in. They know what they're going to make, they know what they're expected to attend. That said, if we can stick with the per diem way of doing things too, I just think that some clarification over what can and can't be claimed or put in for would maybe be warranted in a different policy.
Oh, that's what I mean.
That I don't have ready today, so either way it's fine with me.
Like parade.
You won't break my heart if you go either way, so.
We did go through the committee process that we do, and that was one of the things we looked at, so.
What was that name? I'm sorry.
We did go through the committee, like that we were supposed to after the organizational meeting, so we did go through those steps.
So, what do you want to do here? You need another month to think about it, or you want to make a motion, or leave it, Tori?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be prepared to make a motion. Would you like 2 motions, or how would you like to do this, Mr. Chairman, for rescind?
Don't know you need to rescind.
We do have to rescind the original policy 155 because it wouldn't exist anymore. I gave them new policy numbers just for clarification.
Well,
So you'd approve 177 and 155.
you'd have to do the rescinding after you have the other though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, then I would move that county council approve policy 177, council remuneration 2019 as presented.
I can say as amended, and I'll add that clause about the previous.
Okay, thank you.
What was that clause on the per diem again?
Just that if you receive any external premiums, they get payable back to the county.
Yeah.
Can you say that again, Tracy, sorry?
Yeah, I will add it under, I'm gonna add it under 5.12 for external committee meetings. If that external committee pays you a per diem, it gets paid back to the county because you're being compensated by the county already. And most policies that I did review say that as well, so we're not out of the norm there.
Any further discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Lost.
Do you want direction then for us, or? So
It
that
remains the same.
it remains the same, we would like some tightening up in the policy? Is that?
That's needed, yes.
Yes, very much so. Is that interesting? Yeah. So we're gonna go back to the committee? I can just
I
Revise the policy and bring it back.
Go to the committee and discuss it with them.
So if we move forward to the next one, the next policy on here?
Yep.
Because this I think can go by itself here. then I have to come back anyways because I would need to split policy 155 and take the SCAB members out of it, which I would prefer anyways because they are standalone, they're not members of council. They're external appointees, so they should be separate. So that's why I prepared the separate SCAB member remuneration policy.
Would it not, it's a good idea to separate it too in case we do end up going through the
True that, yeah, because then we would just cancel the policy, right? Or revise it to their rates. So I didn't make any changes on it. Can I go forward with this report? Can I go forward with this next report?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't really change the structure of this. I just basically pulled out the sections from that old policy that applied to subdivision and appeal board of remuneration. So it's quite short. It's only a page and a half long, and it basically just says that they are paid per diems, the same per diems that you are paid, at the rate you're paid at. So that would still mirror 154, and that they are paid mileage and travel assistance as per our new travel policy 155. So there's really nothing different in there that isn't currently contained in our policy for them. Just that it would be a standalone policy now with council.
Need a moment. Bonds? Any further discussion? Call question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. I do believe that's it. Motion to adjourn?
Move so.